In the year 2050, a powerful explosion of energy occurred on the surface of the Earth. This explosion opened a portal in the sky that led to the other world. People rushing about their business were shocked to see a portal in the sky. Countless creatures that were previously considered only myths and legends poured onto the Earth. The world had to fight otherworldly creatures, beasts that could not be defeated by ordinary weapons. Some humans have evolved to withstand these interdimensional beasts. In this era, evolved people have enormous power in their hands. But not everyone was so lucky. Li Haoran was an ordinary person, and he had a strange disease that appeared because of the rift. Fate was extremely unfair to John. He was attacked by his own people. They decided to sacrifice Janya since he was weak and would have died of illness anyway. John, in the name of the blood god, was suddenly revived without a single wound in the demon village. There were succubi living in the village who immediately began to take a liking to John. Nico, one of the succubi, swore allegiance and said that she would never abandon him. Ran received the blood god system, a power much stronger than the evolved ones, and realized that he now had the power to take revenge. Jan fought with beasts to increase his level. Ran used the new abilities granted to him by the blood god system. Jan now has the ability to obtain special equipment from the bodies of his followers, thanks to the resonance of the soul. Jan's stats increased depending on the amount of blood he drank. Nico became one of those whose blood Ran drank. Jan drank the blood of succubi, increasing his characteristics. Jan's stats grew with each new victim to bite, and he realized that he would become stronger the larger his harem became. The succubi were completely amazed by John and looked at him with bright feelings. Nico was happy when she found him and hugged him. Li Shui, a girl from the harem, protected Ran. John was going to go against the will of heaven to change his fate. Jan's strength grew, and he entered into battle with his opponents without fear. Present-day J City Hospital. John stood in the rain, looking at the hospital discharge papers. Ran and his sister had been moving around among relatives since they were 6 years old, after their parents died in a battle between the evolved and the beasts. But now John realized that troubles never come alone. He stood in the rain while people with umbrellas walked past. Janya was diagnosed with a mutation disease due to the harmful influence of animals, and he was faced with paralysis and then death. Jan knew that he had no chance of survival, but he could not give up, because he had to help his sister and fulfill his mother's last wish. A couple of days later, people gathered in a small clearing in the forest in the suburbs. Chen Zijin told the group that they needed to find the nest of the first-level beasts that had attacked the locals. Jen assured that such beasts did not pose a threat to the team, and told them to follow his orders, his evolution level being Supreme Steel. Jen pointed towards the trees, telling them to get to work, and the team responded with enthusiasm. Jen turned to Ran, asking him if his task as a porter was clear, and Ran confirmed, carrying a huge backpack on his back. Jan mentally reviewed his duties. There was no fighting in them, only the role of a porter and a gatherer of materials after the battle. Ran told Jen not to worry, assuring him that this was not his first foray. The whole group went deeper into the forest. Jen easily defeated first-level beasts using his dagger. His teammate dealt with the beasts with his bare fists. The whole team was busy with the animals, without experiencing any difficulties. Jan held on, thinking that they would quickly cope, realizing that there was a huge gap between humans and the evolved. Jan noticed something strange. The pebbles under Jan's feet trembled slightly. The next moment, the pebbles began to actively jump above the ground from the vibration. Jen realized that there was something dangerous nearby, because the first-level beasts were not so big that the ground would shake. Something was rapidly approaching them, cutting through the dense forest. A huge body of a beast emerged from the forest. The fifth-level mutated beast, the Titanic Snake, looked at the group, towering up to the sky. The whole team froze, and a girl from the group said that she had seen such a creature on TV, remembering its fifth level. The snake's gaze riveted them to the spot, and the girl, shaking with fear, began to say that they had not been warned about this, and they would not cope. The cry of escape for salvation brought everyone to their senses. The girl turned on her heels and ran away. The girl ran in fear, saying that she would have frozen if not for the scream, and her friend ran after her, lamenting the size of the snake. The snake opened its mouth and began to move. Zhenyu suggested that they distract the snake with something, saying that they freeze when they eat, and Zhen thought about it. Zhen jumped towards Ran, causing him to be surprised. The next moment, Zhen took out a dagger and cut Ran with a sharp blow. Zhen felt a burning pain in his chest. Ran, shocked, began to ask Zhen why he cut him and why he did it. Zhen saw a hand reaching out to him. Zhen was grabbed by the throat. Zhen said that Zhen was easy to replace, because he was the only incompetent member of the team. Zhen lifted Ran off the ground by his throat, saying that he would at least be of some use with his diagnosis. Zhen threw Ran aside to the snake, saying that it was his own fault since he could not defend himself. The snake noticed how John landed on the ground not far from him, and bounced back several times. Zhen lay on the ground coughing in pain, unable to move. The snake moved towards John, without taking his eyes off him. The next moment the snake opened its mouth and rushed at John. Zhen looked at the snake, not believing that he would die in this way. In the face of death, Jean had a memory of his mother asking him to look after his little sister when she no longer had any strength left. Mama Janaya asked him to grow up and become a strong man. Tears flowed from her eyes. Ron emerged from his memories when a magic circle appeared beneath him. Jan felt like he was being transported somewhere. Teleportation took Jan to an unfamiliar place, to a platform around which stood a large crowd. Jan's silhouette appeared on the platform in the light of the beam. Jan couldn't understand what was happening. He felt his body in a new outfit without wounds, and couldn't understand why he didn't die. Jan's attention was drawn to the surprised exclamations that a man had appeared, and some Nico had been able to summon him. A crowd of succubus girls looked at Jan, who stood on the platform, discussing his appearance. The succubi continued to discuss it, saying that their blood was already boiling. The succubi were dressed in revealing outfits, and said that Jan was emitting a strong magical aura. The succubi already wanted to play with him. They moved closer to the platform. Jan was disoriented. He didn't understand what was going on here at all, especially surprised by the succubi. But this wasn't the only thing that worried Jan. He turned his head to the status window that appeared in the air. Jan didn't understand whether others could see the status window where his characteristics were written. Jan's attention was drawn to the hesitant succubus, who said that it was she who had summoned him. Nico, a third-level beast, a succubus, described how it all happened, saying that they were all scared by the powerful energy, and suggested that Ran was very strong. Nico excitedly swore absolute fidelity to Jan, saying that she would be his forever and ever. The system window notified Jan that he had received his first satellite. Ran tried to understand the notification that appeared after Nico had pledged allegiance. Jan's finger touched the window and the surface vibrated. The window displayed Nico's stats along with his affection level, which was 88%. Ran received a notification that after reaching 100%, he could accept a companion into his harem and receive a secret reward. Jan smiled, realizing that he owed his rebirth to this system. Ran received the power of the blood demon god, which was superior to the evolved ones, which could help him take revenge. Nico pressed herself against Jan, asking if everything was okay with him, since he was stuck in the air and pointing his finger at it. Nico looked at Jan with trepidation, asking how long he had slept and if he wanted to move. Jan vaguely said that it could be considered that way, and then Nico spread her wings, saying that something could be done to get the blood flowing. Nico placed her hands on her cleavage, saying that it would be an honor for her to help Jan. Nico began to take off her top, saying that she had never had anyone before, but she would do everything possible to please Jan. The other succubi envied her, saying that they could show her how it should be done and noting the advantages of their appearance. Ran raised his hand, asking Nico to wait. He said that he had never intended to do such a thing, and asked if all succubi were so persistent. The window informed Jan that Nico's affection had dropped to 85%. Nico became sad and asked Jan why this was so, assuming that he didn't like her body. Ran realized his mistake, because attachment was a key feature of the system. Jan knew that he had to use the system to the fullest for the sake of revenge, and he had an idea. He decided to maximize everyone's affection. Jan told Nico that she didn't understand him, and she was beautiful, like everyone else here. He tried to create a romantic atmosphere. Jan came closer, saying that he had never seen such women, and Nico listened to him, as if enchanted. Nico was embarrassed by Jan's words, and her affection increased to 90%. Ran continued. He said that he was still a little out of it due to the sudden summoning, and he needed energy. Nico thought about it, realizing that since Ran was a blood demon god, he needed blood for energy. Nico bowed her head, exposing her neck, and told Jan to help herself. She would be glad if her blood ended up inside Jan. Ran felt his insides twist into a knot at the sight of Nico's neck, and assumed it was vampire instincts. Jan leaned towards Nico, baring his fangs, deciding with a grin that he was no longer his own master. Nico let out a loud gasp as she felt the bite, her face turning red. Nico thought about how she was now one with Jan, while her affection grew to 92%, and her breathing became ragged. Ran saw a new notification that he had a new skill, blood fusion, and his strength stat had increased. Ran wiped his mouth, thinking about the notifications, and Nico stood on shaky legs from the bite. Jan clicked on the status window to see the details. The blood fusion skill allowed Jan to gain 1 point to a random stat when he absorbed a woman's blood. Jan thought this was a good start, because there were a lot of girls around him. Ran was delighted with the skill that gave him free random stat points. Ran turned to Nico, getting her attention, and said that he needed more blood. Nico was still shaking after the first time, but she confidently asked Jan not to deny himself anything, and to drink her blood as much as he wanted. Jan explained that he needed not only her blood, but also the blood of others. Ran looked over his shoulder at the rest of the succubi, saying that he needed the blood of women, and the more the better. The succubi who witnessed Nico's reaction became interested in Jan's request. Jan chuckled and told them to come over if no one objected. Time passed. Butterflies flew across the night meadow. Jan continued to drink the blood of the succubi, increasing his characteristics and giving them new, exciting sensations. Each of the succubi who remained delighted after being bitten increased Jan's random stat points. Jan increased his agility, intelligence, and endurance without much effort. Notifications about stat increases kept popping up in front of Jan. The succubi were absolutely delighted. One of them said that it was an amazing feeling, and her heart was about to jump out of her chest. The other succubus trembled, noticing that she seemed to have achieved enlightenment, and her soul had merged with John's soul. Ran was pleased. He used blood fusion on each of them and gained a whole bunch of stat points. Ran wiped the blood from his mouth, noticing that the succubi's reaction was very violent due to a simple bite to their necks. Ran thought about the sensitivity of the succubi who were lying unconscious on the ground around him with heightened affection. That same evening in the city of succubi, in one of the houses, Nico carefully entered the house, closing the door behind her. Nico headed towards the bed. Turning to John, she asked if he was tired of all this crowd. Nico carefully climbed onto the bed. She confessed how she felt after the bite. Nico sat on top of the blanket, asking John to strengthen their connection, believing that the moment would never be better. Nico excitedly said that today she was going to become a real succubus. Nico confidently declared that she would be on top and placed her hands in front of her on the blanket. Nico thought that something was wrong and that John felt strange under the blanket. Nico pulled the blanket off the bed to check everything. In front of Nico on the bed, instead of John, there was a log. Nico scratched her head, sighing dejectedly, and wondered if Jean could have found someone more important than her. At the same time, Jean stood in the middle of the cemetery. Ran looked at the status window, thinking that his level was still first. But now he had good stats after collecting blood from succubi all day. Jan thought that he now needed a good fight to level up. Ran remembered Jen and thought that after leveling up, he would take revenge on him. Jan remembered from his experience hunting in the squad that the cemetery was full of dark energy, and there should be undead. He decided to lure them out. Ran released his magical energy to its fullest, determined to show what he was capable of. Jan's magical energy slowly spread throughout the cemetery. Jan saw small lights above the graves, asking who dared to disturb their peace. The lights took on the recognizable appearance of female bodies, chatting among themselves about Jean, who dared to disturb their peace. In front of Jean appeared mutated beasts of the first level, faceless ghosts with magnificent forms. The ghosts rushed at Jean, shouting at him to die for disturbing their peace. Ran easily stopped the ghost with a punch, noting with annoyance that they were only level 1. The remaining ghosts rushed to attack Jean. Chan easily beat the ghosts with his fists and will receive new experience points. After another blow to the ghost, pinning her to the ground, Ran noticed that his level had increased. Jan moved towards the ghost so as not to waste time. His characteristics increased, as did his level. The remaining ghosts began to run away from Jean because he was leaving behind destroyed ghosts. Ran gained a new skill, Crimson Flash, which allowed him to perform 2 quick dashes every 5 seconds. Later that night, the aging moon was high in the sky. Ran breathed heavily, finally understanding what the evolved were experiencing, and found it wonderful. Ran stood among the corpses of ghosts. His level had risen to 8, and he thought that he was no longer just some loader. Ran carefully studied his status window with increased stats. Jan thought about where to throw the new points, realizing that strength, agility, and endurance are decisive for combat skills. Ran decided to allocate points to strength and endurance, considering it logical due to the presence of the Crimson Flash. The system window warned Jean about the danger. Ran turned around and found a second-level mutated beast, a butcher, swinging its sword at him behind him. The sword struck the place where Ran stood. Jan jumped back, thinking about the speed of the second level despite its appearance. A chain with a harpoon flew towards Jan, and he realized that the beast was not alone. Jan jumped up, and the harpoon hit the place where he had just been standing. Jan noticed that the names above the faceless ghosts had turned green, and they were no longer a threat to him. But the butcher's name was yellow, and Jan grinned and assumed that he was on his level. The animals approached Jan while he was thinking about the second chance that fate had given him. Jan had no intention of losing no matter who stood in his way, and the 2 beasts with yellow names did not frighten him. The butcher's eyes lit up before the attack. Ran jumped to the side, avoiding the butcher's attack with the broken sword. Jan jumped up and found himself behind the butcher. Jan decided to kick him in the face, but it had no effect. Jan was surprised by their power and realized that he couldn't defeat them with his bare hands. Ran got the sword from the butcher's body, but at that moment, a chain wrapped around Ran's body. Jan extricated himself from it at the last moment before it tightened. Jan landed on the ground, stopping with his hand on the grass. Ran sighed, realizing that it was close, and the animals were covering each other, acting in a coordinated manner. He looked at the broken sword in his hand. Chan rushed to attack from behind, deciding that even such a place should be enough for a few blows. The butcher noticed his movements and reached for his weapon. Jan had to block the weapon's blow with his broken sword. Jan finally realized that he had invested almost all of his points into strength, because in a direct confrontation, he was no weaker than a butcher. Jan parried the blow with his sword, shouting at the butcher to get out of the way. Jan's movement made the butcher take a step back. The butcher looked around in surprise, having lost sight of Jan. The butcher heard Jan scream as he called him an idiot, approaching from the sky. Jan flew at the butcher, swinging his sword, and said that it was too late for him to turn his head. Jan resolutely shouted at the butcher to die as he attacked him. Jan's sword plunged into the butcher's head. Blood gushed from the butcher's wound. Ran noticed that he was immediately given 2 levels for this kill, and he enjoyed the battle with a strong enemy. Ran reached level 10 and gained a new skill, Blood Burial, which allowed him to summon a blood swamp, slowing enemies and dealing damage. The second butcher now had a green name, and he screamed at the sight of his fellow tribesmen being killed. Jan asked him why he was yelling, noting his increased strength. Jan asked him not to worry about his fellow tribesmen, saying that they would meet soon. The butcher threw a chain with a harpoon at Jan. Ran dodged the attack, saying it was a slow attack. Jan said that he had seen a lot of battles, although he had fought very little. Ran easily dodged the attacks, telling the butcher that they were too predictable. Jan decided to use a new skill, Bloody Burial. A bloody swamp appeared under the butcher's feet, sucking in his legs. From the bloody swamp rose spikes of blood. The thorns pierced the butcher's body in many places. Ran was looking at the dead butcher when he received a level-up notification. Jan was amazed by the skill, realizing that seeing it in person was completely different from just reading the information. Ran received the title Undead Slayer, which immediately became active above his head, and an additional 5% damage against the undead. When morning came, Jan was still in the forest. Ran studied the status window. He was already level 11. The risk tonight was worth it. He knew that he would soon become stronger than Jen. Jan's attention was drawn to a new notification. The notification announced a new daily task and reminded me to complete it within the specified time frame. Jan clicked on the notification, deciding to figure out what kind of daily task he had received. The quest told Jan to consume the blood of at least one woman, activating the blood fusion before the next dawn. Ran was shocked by the task and the 5-point penalty from the random stat. Jan reproached himself for having already drunk the blood of all the succubi yesterday, and did not know where in the wilderness to look for a new woman. Jan realized that they were here. Ran looked at the dead body of the ghost, who was clearly a woman. Jan tried to convince himself that it was logical, even though she was killed by him. Chan bared his fangs, deciding that this would work. Ran received a notification that the victim's blood was already rotting and the blood fusion was not working, and realized that too much time had passed. Jan held the ghost's corpse in his arms, deciding that this should work on at least one of the many ghosts. But all of Jan's attempts were in vain. The bloody fusion did not work on any of them. Ran held his head, cursing that the blood of the undead could not be fresh in principle, and because he had not thought ahead about the blood of the succubi. Jan shouted that he needed a woman and asked where they all went, while releasing magical power. At the same time, in a house in the city of succubi, Nico was lounging in Jan's bed, enjoying his scent that remained on the bed, and imagining herself in Jan's arms. Suddenly Nico felt something. Nico sat up in bed, sure that she had felt Janaya, and that he needed her now. Meanwhile, in another place, a black car was driving through the forest. Two men were discussing whether they were heading in the right direction, where they had detected an energy emission yesterday. The driver noted that the energy was unique to the mutated beast, and they would get a promotion by capturing it. The second man was not so interested, assuming that they would encounter something truly powerful. A voice from the back seat remarked that cowardice was a bad thing in their company, and the second man apologized, saying it was just a feeling. Li Shui, the leader of the fourth evolved team of Hongcheng Company, told him not to worry, and she would solve everything. Li Shu reminded them that they were not the only ones who noticed this energy, but they should be there first. After what time? The car drove right up to Jan, who was surprised by its appearance. Jan looked at the car, wondering if there was a woman among the people in it. Two men got out of the car and tried to figure out if they were looking for Jan, since his magical energy was weak. Jan felt annoyed to see only men hunting him. The next moment, Shui stepped out of the car, stepping onto the ground in red high heels. The name above her head was Red. She immediately realized that this was a vampire, but she thought that Ran was only level 2. Shu gave orders to her subordinates, telling them to deal with it and throw it into the trunk so they could drive faster. Jan was happy to see the woman, but he thought about her gold rank, because he didn't have a chance against her. Ran looked at the men whose names were yellow, making them serious contenders, and decided that he was not going to give up. One of the men was surprised to see that Jan had disappeared from the place where he was standing. Xu felt Ran appear behind her, and was surprised that he was capable of such a thing. Ran's arms wrapped around Xu's waist. Xu was surprised, not expecting such actions. Her cheeks turned red. Ran wrapped his arms and legs around Shui, hanging on her, and thought about what he should do next after capturing her. The men started shouting at him to let Shui go, asking what he was thinking. Xu also didn't understand Ran's actions, and asked how she should understand his embrace. Jan asked for forgiveness, saying that he had no choice, and bared his fangs. Xu felt Ran sink his fangs into her neck, and Ran received a notification that the daily task had been completed. Xu closed her eyes in shame and new sensations, saying that she had never been touched by a man. Xu's breathing was ragged as she tried to find the words to say to Ran. Suddenly Ran was thrown to the side. An ice dome formed around Shui as she shouted at Ran that he needed to know his limits. Jan hit his back against a tree when he fell. Jan wiped his mouth, saying that he had done nothing special, and asked if he really deserved such cold treatment. Xu asked Ran what he thought, since he not only dared to touch her, but also left a mark on her neck. Xu's affection meanwhile increased to 30%, as she said that she would not calm down until she turned Ran into a block of ice. Ran laughed, calling Xue a cold woman with a warm heart, and said that he could only see through her. Shu was embarrassed, but still said that Ran was wrong and talking nonsense. Jian realized that she was not going to kill him, which meant that he had a chance to escape. Suddenly Zhan felt something. A golden card flew rapidly out of the forest. Zhu appeared in front of Ran in an instant, and caught the card with one hand. Zhu extended her hand towards the direction from which the card came and asked who was there, telling the uninvited guests to show themselves. Two silhouettes appeared from the forest. The unknown people said that Xue was a fierce woman, and promised that they would not harm her. Zhengzhe and Yu Wen, both gold level, said that Xue was hesitant to attack, so they decided to help her and suggested leaving Ran to them. Zhan became wary when he saw two more people with red names and decided that today was not his day since they had come for him. Shu wasn't going to give in so quickly. She told the newcomers to keep their pockets wide open if they thought she would give up Ran. Sue said that Hongcheng had found him first and would not give him up so easily, and Ran agreed, saying that only such a beautiful woman was worthy of him. Sue's affection grew again. She said that Ran was theirs and it was not up for discussion, while she herself melted from the compliments. Jane kept praising her, saying that the two of them had already lost to her in fighting spirit, and their affection grew. Ron even praised Shu's subordinates, saying that they clearly would not lose to the clowns, and they agreed, saying that they were not afraid of anyone. Yu Wen sighed, saying that the negotiations had failed, and ordered Zhengzhe to step forward. Zhengzhe sent 3 more cards flying, saying that they had given Shu a chance, and now it was their own fault. Sue easily stopped the cards by creating a barrier in front of her. Zhu pointed her finger towards the opponents. Zui used her power to summon a snowstorm, causing snow to billow around her. Zhengzhe thought that Seiyu had an unpleasant skill, since he could barely keep his eyes open in such a storm. Yu Wen calmly noted that Xue was doing a good job of restricting their mobility and creating a convenient battlefield for himself. Su noticed that her snow was melting before reaching Yu Wen, and he was not so simple, but it seemed like he was not getting into a fight yet. Xu gave her subordinates the order to keep an eye on Yu Wen, and surprising Ran, jumped up into the air. Zhengzhe watched the actions of Xue, whom he had to fight. Xu used her other skill, Ice Song. A huge ice rose emerged from Xue's hands. Zhengzhe was irritated, not understanding who was fighting with flowers, and thought it was a mockery. Rose Xue struck the place where Zhengzhe stood. Xu's subordinates noted her excellent attack, not doubting the power of their superior. Zhengzhe was frozen by Xu's skill. Zhengzhe's body was covered by a huge block of ice. Yu Wen looked at this, saying that Zhengzhe was embarrassing him in front of his opponent, asking how he would explain to his father that he lost to a woman. Sue landed on a block of ice, saying that it was Yu Wen's turn next, but he said that she didn't understand the current situation. At that moment, arrows with heart-shaped tips flew out from somewhere. Zhu's subordinates were surprised when arrows hit their backs. The next moment, Zhu's subordinates turned into stone statues. Xue was trying to figure out what was going on. Yu Wen was also distracted, wondering if another party might have appeared. Nico ran out of the forest. Nico ran up to John and hugged him, happy that she was finally able to find him. Jan asked how she ended up there and called her a smart girl. Nico continued to hug John, saying that she felt that he needed her. That's why she flew in, because she was ready to do anything for him. Sue was shaking at the sight of Ran and Nico's affection, who said that they were lucky to have each other. Sue tried to understand why their flirting irritated her, and convinced herself that it was only because her people were petrified. Sue rushed forward from the ice block, shouting at Ran and Nico to stop cooing and return her subordinates to normal. Yu Wen told Shu not to be distracted because he wouldn't let her go that easily, and Zhu noted that the guy was too fast. Yu Wen easily knocked Shu aside with one blow. Zhu flew into the trees. Ran noticed that they didn't stand a chance against him, realizing how strong Yu Wen was compared to Xue. John thought about the secret reward he would receive and decided to take the risk, and Nico decided that she could not abandon John, even though the enemy was strong. Yu Wen approached them closer, saying that he was lucky today, because he came across a succubus along with a rare beast. Yu Wen assured them with a smile that he would do everything quickly, and they would not feel anything. Nico stood up to defend John, sending many arrows with heart tips towards the enemy. Yu Wen called the attempt worthless, noting that it was only something that could scare Hongcheng as he ran through the arrows. Yu Wen was right in front of Nico when he said that he couldn't be touched by that. Yu Wen and Nico were surprised when Ran appeared next to Nico in an instant. Yu Wen brought his hands together, catching the void instead of Nico, who was saved by Ran. Yu Wen tried to figure out where they had disappeared to, not believing that the second-level beast he thought was Ran had managed to escape from him. John held Nico in his arms. They found themselves between the trees. He spent his flashes and realized that there was nowhere to run. John wanted to get the secret reward faster, but Nico's affection did not grow. Nico was depressed, apologizing for her uselessness and for having to be saved. Jan leaned towards her face, saying that now was not the time to ask for forgiveness. Nico was worried that it wasn't the right time to do this with Zane when his lips were right next to hers. Nico gave in to him, deciding that she was doing everything that Ran wanted when his lips covered hers. Ran received a notification that Nico's affection had increased to 99%. Yuwen shook with anger as he watched the two of them kiss during the battle. Yuwen decided that he shouldn't expect more from the animals since they ran off to kiss. Yuwen was furious, saying that they would have started right here if he had delayed. Ran noticed Yuwen's actions, panicking that Nico was still lacking 1% of affection, and wondered what to do. Yuwen rushed at them, screaming for them to die, while Ran mentally prayed for affection to grow faster. An ice barrier appeared in front of Yuwen, causing him to stop. Jan and Nico were protected. Yuwen turned to Shui, telling her to know her place since he only spared her out of diplomacy, but she didn't believe him. Zhu confidently declared that Ran was her vampire, and she would not give him up without a fight. Nico felt like she was on cloud 9 because of John's kiss in the heat of battle. Her affection became the maximum. Ran gained access to all of the blood god's stats for 10 minutes as a secret reward. The ice barrier turned blood red from the inside. A burst of magical energy shot into the sky as the barrier was breached. Yuwen and Shui turned around in surprise, distracted from their own battle. Yuwen looked at Ran, who came out of the barrier. John's eyes changed. Ran said boredly to Yuwen that he was waiting for him. He looked different. His hair became long. Yuwen was shocked, not understanding where the second level could get such terrifying power from. Ran extended his hand towards Yuwen, saying that he was giving him a chance. Yuwen didn't understand what was happening as he was being forcibly pulled towards Ran. Ran grabbed Yuwen by the throat. Yuwen began to beg Ran not to kill him, immediately admitting that he was wrong. Ran reminded that Yuwen used to speak completely differently. Yuwen choked and coughed up blood, saying that he did not know Ran's strength and asked to forgive his stupidity. Ran said that he was familiar with this scene. He said that just recently he was in Yuwen's place. He was trash that could be gotten rid of. Ran thought about it, remembering that Zhen was from the Yuwen faction, and said that it didn't play into his hands. Ran threw Yuwen aside, and the next moment, Ran punched Yuwen in the gut with his fist. Yuwen flew back, plowing the ground with his body. Yuwen broke through the block where Zhengzhe was frozen. After Yuwen landed, dust rose up. Yuwen lay on the ground, unable to move and coughing. Ran looked at his hand, amazed at the full power of the blood god that he had received as a secret bonus. Zue was shocked by Ran's strength. She didn't understand why he hid his power and gave in to her. Nico was still under the impression of the kiss. She looked at John, thinking that he was amazing. Zhengzhe finally managed to escape from the ice block by splitting the remains of Yuwen's body. Zhengzhe said he was going to fight with all his might after seeing Shui's tricks. Zhengzhe noticed the changed Jan, and did not understand who it was. John activated the Scarlet Storm skill without further ado, and a horde of bats flew out from his cloak. Zhengzhe screamed that it was disgusting, feeling them even getting into his eyes. Ran's bats swarmed around Zhengzhe. When the bats flew away, all that was left of Zhengzhe was a skeleton. Ran received new stat points for killing Zhengcheng, whose skeleton lay on the ground. John was pleased that he had grown 5 levels at once, and had obtained a new skill, Scarlet Storm. Yuwen was still lying on the ground, begging for mercy. Ran came closer to him, telling him that he should be louder and that he couldn't hear him. And Yuwen continued to ask for forgiveness, saying that he didn't want to die. Yuwen promised that his father, the head of the elite center, would do anything for Ran if he let him go. Ran asked if Yuwen wanted to go home and said he would help him, to which the boy thanked him. Ran used his strength to move Yuwen, who thanked Ran and promised to repay the favor. Ran said that his credo was one good deed a day, and wished for a soft landing, sending Yuwen flying. Zhu and Nico looked at Yuwen's flying body in surprise. Shu knew that there was a city in that direction, but she could believe that Ran had done what she thought. Yuwen pierced the snowy mountains with his body. Yuwen flew to the city. Yuwen crashed into a building at the end of his flight. Ran received notifications of stat increases, which indicated Yuwen's death. Ran immediately understood from them that Yuwen had reached home, and again gained 5 levels, realizing that with each level more and more experience was needed. Jan turned around. Shui was scared when Ran looked at her. She asked what he was going to do with her. Ran called Nico, saying that her direct participation was needed, and she happily responded, leaving Shui wondering what would happen. Ran activated soul resonance with Nico, and she felt changes in her body. Nico looked at her chest in surprise, saying that energy was gathering in it, and something was about to come out. A sword was coming out of Nico's chest, making her wonder how such a large object fit in there. Nico asked John to take it out because the sword was too big, but asked him to do it gently. Ran grabbed the hilt of the sword that was sticking out of Nico's chest. Ran slowly pulled the sword, telling Nico not to worry, because this was their soul resonance, and asked her to hold on. The tip of the sword came out of Nico's chest. Ran raised his sword, looking at the special equipment that could be obtained through soul resonance from a companion with maximum affection. Ran was pleased with what Nico had given him, Bradso's bloody blade. Shui was surprised when Ran pulled the weapon out of Nico's chest. Shu didn't understand why Ran summoned the sword, since he could destroy her without the sword. Chan interrupted her, telling her to stop making things up, and swung his sword. Shu's clothes were torn to shreds, leaving her in only her underwear and tights. Zhu felt herself become refreshed and lowered her eyes. Shu saw her legs in only tights. Her next gaze caught on her open bra. Sue covered herself with her hands, starting to shout that this was completely out of bounds. And since Ran wanted to kill her, she shouldn't have touched her clothes. Ran told her to stop talking as he was just checking the weapons under his clothes, and told Xue to come with him if she didn't want to end up like those two. They went deeper into the forest. Xue was nervous, not knowing what Ran wanted to talk about since he dragged her into the thicket where there was no one around. Xue tried to understand what he was planning and blushed sharply. She remembered how he had spared her when he had marked her neck and decided that there could only be one reason for that. Xue thought that he wanted to take advantage of her because of love at first sight, and began to examine Ran's appearance. Xue vividly imagined Ran taking the initiative over her. Ran put his hand on the tree right in front of Xue's face, making her think that it was all starting, and her first time would be with a vampire. Ran leaned very close to Xue, telling her to repeat the oath of allegiance after him, and Xue hesitantly asked about role-playing. John noticed that he had not allowed her to ask questions and ordered her to obey. Xue, blushing, repeated her vow of loyalty to Zhang and asked if he was satisfied. Ran received a notification about the second companion and revealed the characteristics of Xue, whose affection was 45%. Ran was very close to Xue's lips when he praised her and said he was satisfied, and Xue thought he was going to kiss her. Zan began to close her eyes, thinking that this would be her first kiss, and was surprised that everything was happening so quickly. Ran walked away from her, saying that there would be no more rewards, and said that Xue's subordinates would soon come to their senses when she was surprised by his actions. Ran leaned towards her again, telling Xue not to say a word about him to anyone. Ran began to walk away from Xue, saying that he had no time and said goodbye to her. Xue hesitantly called out to him, asking him to wait, her cheeks red with embarrassment. Jan turned around, asking if she wanted more. Xue felt embarrassed, began to cover her unsightly appearance again, and asked Ran if he had any clothes so that his subordinates would not see her like this. After a while, Xue stood in Ran's cloak, thinking that she felt awkward because of its residual warmth and Ran's smell on it. Xue clutched her cheeks, thinking she would die of shame, and her affection rose to 50%. Night fell. Jan and Nico returned to the succubus village. Ran studied the status window, noticing that he had reached level 21, and said that he was pleased to be getting stronger. A notification appeared in front of Jen that he could now take part in the bloody massacre. Jen read the details, realizing that there was no way to increase stats, and there was a risk of getting injured. Jan thought that he needed to pump up some more, but he wasn't sure he had enough patience. Jan stood up to his full height on the bed. Jan decided that he was ready for a bloody massacre. John was confident that he was ready to take any risks as long as he got his champagne in the end. Chan entered the portal that opened in front of him. His foot stepped onto the other side. John was surprised to notice that he was even given special clothes. But the place he ended up in was not safe. A status window notification welcomed him to the staging room and offered him a weapon selection. Various weapons appeared around John. Ran began to look around, taking into account that each weapon had not only names, but also buffs marked on it. Jan carefully studied all the proposed options. Ran thought that buffs would help him a lot, but he didn't know what to do since he had never fought with swords or axes. Another weapon caught Jan's attention, an arched yellow cucumber that caused a brief spasm in the enemy when hit. Jan turned it over in his hands, finding the weapon to be the most suitable, despite its strange shape. The notification offered to choose a buff for the upcoming fight. He had a choice between defense penetration, a potion, and a forge. Ran thought about what to choose if he didn't know who he would have to fight, and decided to rely on his experience in games, choosing to break through the defense. The notification said that Ran would be transferred to the arena right now. A greeting appeared in front of Jean upon entering the bloody arena. Jean found himself in the middle of a large arena. He looked around with interest. Ran thought the place looked ominous as he looked at the stands filled with skulls. The announcer welcomed everyone to the arena, informing them that there were 50 levels in total, with defenders on each. The commentator stood on the arena railing. Demon Sally, the official commentator, introduced herself. Sally began to introduce John, saying that he was a complete newbie. Sally began to announce the first-level protector, saying that she was a sorceress who brought bad omens and death. Jan looked towards where the protector appeared. Jan asked her what had happened that she was crying. Banshida, a banshee, explained that she senses the passing of all mortals and mourns them. Banshida said that she felt a strong aura of death around Jan, which is why she was crying. Jan asked if he should think he was going to die soon, noticing that her level wasn't showing. Jan decided that it didn't matter since he knew about his strength, and tried on the Scarlet Storm skill. A horde of bats flew towards Banshida. The bats were cut to pieces in an instant. The long-clawed banshee told Jan that she couldn't be taken by someone like that, and he was no match for her. Banshida rushed forward, leaving behind crushed earth. Banshida appeared behind Jan in an instant and said that it was all over. Ran avoided her attack by using Banshida's arm as a support to jump. Ran confidently stated that he just needed to switch to close combat if ranged combat didn't work. Banshida's eyes widened as the cucumber's shadow hung over her face. Banshida raised her leg up, shouting at Jang to take that thing away from her, and showed off her magnificent stretch. The cucumber flew to the side from her blow. Sally continued to comment, noticing Banshida's reaction to the oblong objects. Ran meanwhile caught Banshida's raised leg, forcing her to stand in a compromising position. Banshida lost her balance on one leg and tripped, Ron ended up on top of Banshida, saying that he didn't expect her to lose her head from just one look. Ran confidently urged her to surrender, saying that he would not lose to anyone in brute force, and she would not be able to escape. Ran leaned towards Banshida, saying that she must be uncomfortable, and suggested that they give in so that it would be easier for both of them. Banshida opened her mouth and began to scream. Ran was surprised to feel Banshida's loud cry reaching his ears. Janya was thrown a great distance away from Banshida, allowing her to free herself. Janya was slammed into the wall of the arena, and the wall broke beneath him. Ran wiped his face, thinking that he couldn't underestimate Banshida since she had such a powerful skill. Sally was shocked, commenting on Bansheed's use of Alpha Howl, her signature attack. Bansheed used her skill while Sally said that this attack affected the enemy, bringing them to pure terror. They lose the will to fight. Ran was shocked to hear that if he lacked fortitude, he would not be able to survive this attack. Sally saw Ran cover his ears and close his eyes, and said that she noticed his difficulties and said that the outcome of his life was already predetermined. Meanwhile, John found himself in some space where he was met by a woman who asked if he had forgotten her face. John was shocked to see his mother. He looked at the woman in front of him with tears in his eyes, not believing what was happening. The woman called him a fool because who else could it be, and asked if it was hard for him. The woman extended her hand to him, telling Jean that they could be together from now on and forever if he came. The woman hurried him, saying that eternal bliss awaited them, in which they would be together. Jan flinched as she began to insist more strongly, asking him to take her hand. John said that he had already experienced death. He spoke about betrayal, an incurable disease, and the incident when he lost his mother. Jan became angry, saying that his mother had given her life for him and would never rush him into the afterlife. Jan's body in the arena was enveloped by his magical power when he came to his senses. Banshida couldn't believe her eyes, thinking that it was impossible. Jan took out a cucumber-shaped weapon from the wall. Ran stood in front of Banshida, intending to continue the fight, while Sally continued to comment with delight. Ran activated the art of hidden pain, saying that he had understood Banshida's strength, and now it was his turn. Banshida was surprised by Ran's ability to hide when he disappeared from her sight. Bansheed used BloodManhwa again. Sally noticed that Bansheed was using a more powerful howl volley than last time, deciding to cover the entire arena. John, invisible to the eyes of others, appeared directly in front of Banshida. Bansheed was surprised when a cucumber plugged her mouth, preventing her from using her beta voice. Ran said that Banshida irritated him because she wouldn't shut up while the cucumber was breaking through her defenses. Sally's mouth dropped open as she realized that Ran had managed to interrupt Banshida's attack. Ran noticed that the fight was not over yet, and the most interesting part was yet to come when he pulled the cucumber out of Banshida's mouth. Ran began an unstoppable onslaught of cucumbers towards Banshida. With each hit, Bansheed's defense decreased by 1%. Banshida didn't understand where Janaya got this strength from, because he was holding just a cucumber in his hands. But each time it became more and more painful for her. Jan said that he was not finished yet, seeing that she could no longer cope. Ran activated the cucumber's additional effect, making the target paralyzed while continuing to attack, continuing to reduce their defense. Banshida was almost unconscious due to the cucumber's influence, thinking that she could no longer bear the way her body was reacting. Bansheed collapsed onto the arena under the additional effect of the cucumber, as her defense points were being depleted. Dust slowly began to settle over the arena where Banshida had fallen. Ran stood next to Banshida, who was in a compromising knee-elbow position, and asked if she was giving up. Banshida continued to tremble and begged John to stop, saying that she was giving up. Sally looked at what was happening, speechless, while thoughts swarmed in her head, making her shudder just from looking at it. Ran turned to Sally, telling her to announce the results since Banshida had given up, and Sally apologized, noticing that she had accidentally gotten lost in thought. Sally named Jean the winner, saying that he had earned the right to fight at the next level. John was pleased to receive a passive skill and a point for skill upgrade as a reward, and decided that it was worth coming. The notification asked John if he wanted to immediately move on to the second level of Bloody Carnage. Jan decided that he would return when he got stronger, because pride will not lead to anything good. A portal leading out of the bloody massacre appeared near the house in the succubus village. Jan came out of the portal. John was surprised to see another reward in the form of the Will of the Victor skill. The Will of the Winner allowed John to summon defeated enemies, who automatically became his companions. Jan was surprised, thinking that he would have access to a whole army when he leveled up. John turned to the door of his house, hearing familiar sounds from there. John opened the door to the illuminated room. Nico sat on the bed, enjoying the feeling of John's presence due to the lingering scent. Nico opened her eyes slightly, noticing that the smell had become stronger. Ran stood right in front of her, asking what Nico was doing. Nico began to sheepishly justify herself, saying that she wasn't doing anything strange. Nico got out of bed, saying that she spent the whole night sewing a cloak for Ran, since he gave his to Shui. Jan stroked her hair, asking what he would do without her, and said that he would definitely not give this cloak to anyone. Near Jan's house, the sound of a contented Nico humming a song to herself could be heard. Nico felt happy, thinking that Jan had almost directly confessed his love to her, since he said that he wanted to be with her until the end. John was finally able to go to bed after a series of heavy battles that lasted almost 2 days. But early in the morning, the succubus ran through the village, screaming about the orc attack. The succubus was immediately tied up with a rope. A heavy step was heard behind her. The lead orc shouted at his boys to take everything that wasn't nailed down. The orc slaves walked right behind him. The tied-up succubi were thrown to the ground so that they could not escape. None of the succubi could resist the attacks of the orcs. The orcs shouted to the orc slaves to tie up the succubi well and take away the food and gold with treasures. Arrows with Nico's hearts flew at them. 3 orc slaves were petrified by arrow strikes. The orc asked who had the nerve to attack them, and told him to show himself while Nico stood behind him. Nico said that the orcs had ruined her morning and threatened them to let the succubi go and get lost. The orc was angry. He said that Nico didn't understand anything and asked how she was going to fight him. Nico was attacked from behind by orc slaves. The orcs were pierced by bloody spikes when Ran used the blood burial skill. Every killed orc brought Jean experience points. Blood burial became level 2 and no longer depended on the terrain, pursuing enemies within the attack radius. And Nico recognized Jean's skill. Jean approached Nico, asking what all the fuss was about this morning, since they weren't letting him sleep, and Nico tried to explain about the orcs. Chan told Nico not to worry, because he would figure it out. The orc with the yellow name asked why the vampire was standing up for the succubi, and said that it shouldn't concern Jean. Ran stated that he had the blood of every succubus in him, and told the orc that they should stop chatting, as it was too late for the orcs to ask for mercy. Ran activated the skill Will of the Victor, summoning Banshida. Banshida appeared next to Jean and Nico. Nico was amazed by the power of the familiar that Jane summoned. The orc didn't appreciate it, saying that Banshid was just a woman, and there were at least 100 of them here, and they weren't afraid of anything. Banshid used her skill. The orcs were affected by the Banshid's howl. The orc slaves began to kill themselves, saying that they had disgraced their ancestors and reproached themselves for the terrible things they had done. The orc slaves killed themselves, saying that their place was in hell, while experience fell to Jana. The main orc was on his knees, not understanding what kind of howl it was that caused voices in his head and a desire to commit suicide. The chief orc stood up, shouting that the honor of the orc tribe was on his shoulders. The next moment, he received a knee strike to the jaw. The orc was thrown back by the blow, while Zhang said that their honor consisted of murder, robbery, and arson, and was worth nothing. Zhang pressed his hand into the ground after the first blow. Ran kicked the orc, sending him flying as Ran said that he was responsible for the lives of everyone in this village. Ran watched as the lead orc flew into the sky from the impact. Chan used the Crimson Storm skill, and a horde of bats flew out from his cloak. The orc screamed that he wouldn't be taken so easily, and he would have dealt with Zhang if it weren't for Banshid when the bats swarmed him. John was irritated by his logic, and told the one who brought a whole crowd with him to keep his pockets wider. Banshid continued to use her howl skill. Nico joined her to help kill the orc. The lead orc had no chance when their attacks reached him. The orc's body fell to the ground without any sign of consciousness. Jan looked at what was happening, thinking that leniency towards the enemy was cruelty towards oneself. Jan raised his hand using the skill. The orc's body was immediately pierced by numerous blood spikes, while Zhang resolutely declared that he would immediately finish off weakened enemies. Chen received a notification that his level had increased. Ran approached the succubi, Nico and Banshida, and asked if everything was okay. The succubi were delighted to see John in battle, confident that the orcs would never attack them again. Ran turned to Banshida and praised her for doing a great job and helping with the orcs on her first summoning. Banshida was very embarrassed and said that it was an honor for her to carry out any order of Jean. Jan said that he had an important task for her and told her to follow him. They went into the forest. Banshida was shaking and complaining that Jean had first left her in an incomprehensible state after the fight in the arena, and now he was pressing her and biting her neck. Banshida asked if the important task was to satisfy John's desires, and assured that she would endure everything despite the pain. Ran wiped the blood from his mouth, explaining that it was necessary to maintain his strength. He had received a notification of 50% affection. Ran stopped explaining, asking what was wrong with Banshida's face, and suggested that she had anemia. Banshida stood bent over and said that since their battle, her body was very sensitive, and she couldn't stop shaking. Banshida became quite agitated, saying that she couldn't do this anymore and apologizing for having to take her leave. Ran watched as Banshida disappeared, surprised that she was so sensitive. This evening at the pond, Nico and the succubus discussed gratitude for John for saving the village, and the succubus said that gratitude with the body would be the most sincere. Nico shared her concerns about John's growing harem, that he is only interested in battles, and that she has no experience at all in love affairs. Nico was sincerely worried, not knowing what she could do for John. The succubus assured Nico that she was simply too shy, since she could not help but be attracted to Jean. The succubus told Nico to take off the towel, promising that she would help her with the spell. The towel ended up on the edge of a small pond. Nico looked at her experienced friend, waiting to see what she would do next. The succubus directed her magic at Nico's stomach. Nico looked at her body in surprise, asking what it was. The succubus explained that Nico's fighting skills were better than other succubi, but with the mark now on Nico's stomach, she would be able to reach her full potential. That same night in John's house, John trained, thinking about where he should invest his experience points. Nico walked into his house, her skin still damp from swimming in the pond. Nico turned to John, saying that she wanted to reward him. John turned to her with his bare chest, asking why Nico was so happy. Nico couldn't take her eyes off John's body and realized that her body wasn't obeying her. The towel fell to the floor, revealing to John a view of Nico's naked body. Chan was amazed and asked what she was trying to do. Ran's eyes froze when he saw the mark on Nico's body, but Ran managed to avoid the effect of the lustful desire due to his resistance. The succubus who remained in the pond remembered the main nuance that she forgot to mention. The effect can turn on the caster if it does not work. The succubus sank under the water, worrying about what to do, because it might not work on John. Meanwhile, it was getting hot in John's house. Ran asked the shivering Nico if everything was okay and inquired about the mark, and Nico complained to him that she was too hot. Nico could barely control herself. She told John that there were a lot of dirty thoughts in her head, and something seemed to want to break out. Nico closed her eyes, pitifully asking John to help her, because she couldn't cope anymore. Jan hugged her and said that he understood her feelings. John began to worry about Nico's condition, but she asked him to do whatever he wanted. Jan immediately covered Nico's lips with his own, giving in to desire. Sounds of love came from John's house. At dawn, John's house in the village of Succubi. Nico's eyes opened suddenly. Nico stood up and noticed that she had become stronger, feeling the endless flow of magic passing through her. Nico turned to look at John, who was sleeping next to her, assuming that the night with him had had an effect. Nico looked dreamily at John, who wanted to eat her at night, even when her mark didn't work on him. Ran woke up to a notification that Nico had received a power boost thanks to his essence. John wasn't worried that this could only be done once, noticing that Nico's stats had become better than his own. Nico turned to John, who had suddenly woken up, asking if he hadn't enjoyed their night. But John reassured her. Nico was delighted to hear the compliment and said that she belonged only to John. Jan received his daily task again and asked Nico, as if by chance, if there were other villages with women nearby. Nico assumed that there were women in the orc village that attacked them. After some time, they stood at the village gate. Ran offered Nico to show him her new power, giving her the opportunity to take revenge on the orcs who had long been bothering the succubi. Chen reminded Nico that she should not touch women. Nico said that she understood him, deciding that she would never disappoint John because he gave her the opportunity to take revenge. The orcs in the village looked up to see a huge ball of energy in the sky above the gate. Nico addressed the orcs, telling them that they would see the power that her master, Ryan, had given her, and would know what the vengeance of the succubi was. The ball of energy flew with Nico to the orc village. Many orcs were scattered in different directions when Nico's energy collided with the ground. Ran stood to the side, receiving experience points for fighting Nico, just like he did with Bansheed. Jan was pleased that all the experience came to him when his companions killed enemies. A huge crater formed where Nico landed. Nico informed the orcs that today was their last day, so she was here to destroy their village at the behest of the blood god, Jean. The orcs rushed to attack her, considering her a pathetic opponent, like some unknown god of blood. Nico caught them by the heads as they approached without any problems. Nico made the orcs bump heads with each other. Nico began to gather energy in her hands, saying that she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Nico told the orcs that they would see the ultimate fighting technique of the succubi, and they would not find a better death. Nico jumped up from the crater with a whip of energy in her hands. Nico held herself in the sky thanks to her wings, the long whip dragging to the ground. Nico called on the orcs to attack. Nico swung her whip of desire, cutting down multiple orcs with ease. Chan received notifications about his level increases. John appreciated the speed of leveling up with Nico's help, and was interested in what skill he would gain since he reached level 25. Ran received the skill Child of the Night, which gave him buffs to attacks and movement at night. John grinned, deciding that from now on he would only fight at night, like a real vampire. After some time, Nico stood on a mountain of orc corpses, surprised that they were so weak. The female orc yelled at Nico, telling her to know her place, and stated that she would teach Nico a lesson. John finally waited for the orc woman to appear and with a flash appeared behind her. Chen bared his fangs, wishing himself a bon appetit. The female orc groaned from the bite as Jean received a notification that the daily quest had been completed. After some time, Nico killed nearly 200 orcs in the village cleansing, and 30 orc women were taken captive. Ran praised Nico, saying that her strength was now on a completely different level, which made Nico embarrassed, and noted that it was only thanks to Ran. Ran asked Nico to take the prisoners to the village and petrify them, knowing that she now had enough mana to keep them for a long time. Ran decided to save them for daily quests, noting that they would last for a month. Nico showed John her find, saying that it was something rare. John took the item and received a notification with a description. A rare item that increased mana reserves and allowed energy to be hidden. Ran realized that thanks to this item, the evolved ones would not be able to track him down when he returned to the city. Anger flared up inside John again. Jen remembered his revenge and decided that it was time for him to return. The next day, he told Nico that he was leaving, and she began to worry that she had upset him in some way. Jan assured that he would return in a couple of days after he had deleted the cases, and said that he could not dream of a better companion in order to calm Nico down. Ran left Banshida in the village, giving them both the task of clearing out villages within 10 kilometers and taking women captive. Nico accepted the order with joy. Jan waved to them, saying that they would see each other soon. Banshida asked Nico if anyone was waiting for Johnny in the city, but Nico said that they hardly had the right to speculate about his plans. After nightfall, in a residential area of the city of J, Sue lay on Ran's cloak in her home clothes, saying that he had been occupying all her thoughts since their last meeting. Morning has come in the residential area. Zhu continued to sleep on Ran's coat while someone was breathing heavily in the background. Sui raised her head, trying to figure out what sounds she was hearing. Jan, as if nothing had happened, was doing abdominal exercises at her house. Ran noticed that Shui had already woken up and asked if he had woken her up. Sue flinched in surprise. Sue was shocked that she hadn't noticed his presence and asked when he came and how he knew her address. Ran reminded Zhu of her oath, saying that he could sense her affection, and asked Zhu if he needed to report every time he visited. Ran noticed that Shua's affection had grown and said that he had come to ask for help in gathering information. Ran told Shui that he wanted to know about the latest missions of Chen Zijin, who betrayed him. Zhu said there was no problem because of her position, and she still had the right connections. Ran said that there was something else that was bothering him, and Zhui said that she would do whatever he asked her to do. Ran asked what Shui had been dreaming about after she fell asleep in his clothes and kept muttering something. Sue blushed and hesitated, unable to find the words to respond. In her dream, Zhui begged Ran to give her what he owed her back in the forest, straddling his hips. At that moment, the alarm clock rang, saving Shuo from an awkward question. She ran out of the room shouting that she was late and would do Ran's errands after work. Jen noticed her violent reaction and thought that the dream must have been exciting. After some time, in the underground parking lot of Hongcheng Company, Zhu walked through the parking lot, worried about how she would be able to look Ran in the eye after what he had seen that night. Zhu felt like she was going to die of shame, worried that Ran was laughing at her now. Shu was interrupted from her thoughts by a voice behind her, saying that he had a couple of questions for her. The two men reminded her of the magical explosion, and one of them asked about his brother, Yu Wen, who had gone out to scout out the area. The man said that Yu Wen and the other were killed, and his brother's body was dumped right next to the building of the elite center. The young master of the elite center, Yu Wuyi, did not hide his anger as he asked Shui how she escaped without a single scratch when his brother was killed. Zhu asked if Yu Wu really thought that she was the one who killed his brother, while she thought that the situation was getting heated due to the presence of a legendary level. Wang Meng told Yu Wu not to waste time on her and resort to brute force to get her to talk. He was a top gold level. Wang Meng rushed to attack Shui. Wang Meng was about to use his fire fist on Shui. Wang Meng's fire fist met with Shu's ice barrier. There was a clash of two opposing forces. One began to feel annoyed that the elite center's masters were solving problems in this way, pointing to the legendary level. Gi reminded them that they were in Hongcheng Company, whose employees were on the floor above. Yu Wu asked to understand him correctly, because he has an impulsive character, but a gentle soul. Yu Wu said that he didn't wish Shui any harm, but only asked her to share information about that day. Sui said that she saw only bones that day, and the beast's spirit was gone, and asked if they were satisfied, turning away from the men. Yu Wu replied that he was quite satisfied, although he still looked angry. Sui walked towards the exit of the parking lot, thinking that she had become the target of an elite center, and the situation was getting more and more out of control. Sui knew that Yu Wu was very dangerous, because only geniuses among geniuses could reach the legendary level. Meanwhile, Yu Wuyi started coughing in the parking lot, and Wang Meng asked if everything was okay, and suggested going to the hospital. Yu Wu said that it was just his illness making itself felt, and added that he didn't like how Shu had been so prudent. Yu Wuyi ordered Wang Meng to seize her subordinates and interrogate them to see if their accounts of that day matched up. Yu Wu said that if there were differences in testimony, all three should be reunited with his late brother. Night soon fell. Jun kept receiving experience points while he waited for Shu at her house. Ran noticed that he was already level 27 thanks to Nico and Banshid, and thought about gradually increasing with the help of minions. Ran was again notified of a new title, Combat Officer. New title, Combat Officer. Ran decided to read the details, and found out that it increases the follower's stats by 10%. Shui returned home with a suitcase and said that she had completed Ran's assignment, finding out that Chen Xingjin was leading a squad on a mission at 10 o'clock in the evening. Shui handed Zhan a stack of papers with details, saying that it contained information about the 8 people who were participating in the mission. Ran noted how much Shui had managed to dig up in such a short time. Xu said that it was nothing special, and felt her cheeks flush as she denied her happiness at Ran's words with increased affection. Ran called her mean and asked about the suitcase, and Zhui said she decided to buy him a gift. Sui showed Ran a variety of potions she had chosen for him. Jean was wearing new equipment that improved his stats. Ran was surprised by the possible cost of the equipment, asking why Shui would spend money on it for no reason. Sui told about the legendary level from the elite center, and said that she could hope that the equipment would help at least a little against Yu Wuya. Ran came very close to her, surprising Zhui. Ran captured Zhu's lips in a kiss. Zhu's affection quickly rose to 83. Zhu was shocked that Ran stole her first kiss. Ran thanked Zhu for the gifts, saying that he would gladly accept them, and now he had to go on business. The wind was blowing outside. Ran decided to take a look at how Xiaoyu was doing before it was 10 o'clock in the evening. His equipment was hidden from view. He came to the #1 high school in J-City. Ran's younger sister, Li Xiaoyu, was sitting at her desk, doing her homework. John looked at her, using the invisibility skill. He understood that it was now dangerous for him to appear in public, and his sister could end up in trouble. John knew that he had to become stronger at all costs in order to be with his sister again. Xiaoyu turned around, sensing something. Xiaoyu looked at the empty doorway, wondering if she was imagining things. Xiaoyu couldn't understand why her tears wouldn't stop. After some time in the forest, Chen Zizhen killed the mutated beast. Chen declared the mission accomplished and ordered the team to strip the bear of everything they could. His team praised Chen's skills. Chen was irritated and told them to stop giving empty compliments and to go home once they had finished their work. Jan, who was standing by the tree, asked if it was too much of an honor for them to go home. Ran advised everyone to hurry up to please Chen, because they wouldn't have such a chance again. Chen didn't believe that Ran was alive. He remembered how he had wounded him with a blade and thrown him to the beast to be eaten, and asked how this was possible. John said that nothing was impossible in this world, noting that he had never believed that someone could stab a comrade in the back either. Ran did not hide his anger when he said that he had found Chen and was demanding a high price from him. Chen's comrade laughed, asking if Ran was all right in the head, since he was demanding the life of a captain without any evolution skills. The guy said that it was only John's weakness that was to blame for the captain sacrificing him due to circumstances. The guy didn't shut up, saying that there shouldn't be any problems at all since John was alive, and asked what the point of hanging around here was. The guy offered John 200 yuan, thinking that it would console him, and told John not to be a fool. Chan summoned his sword in an instant. The guy didn't have time to react when the sword was already flying towards his neck. The guy's head flew off his shoulders without much effort from Zhanya. Jan was angry. He said that he didn't need money and he came to take life. The guy's head fell to the ground. Chen tried to understand how Ran escaped without a single scratch and was stronger than his comrade, considering what was happening to be nonsense. Chen decided that he had let his guard down before the attack and called on the team to kill him to avenge the powers that be. The second guy rose into the air, telling John that luck would not smile on him a second time and he would have to die in agony. Liu Chen sent a cascade of lightning at Ran, confident that he could easily deal with him. Lightning struck the place where John stood. Liu Chen landed on the ground, confident that his strongest attack had blown Ran to smithereens. The next moment, a bloody thorn pierced Liu Chen's head, silencing him forever, and Ran would level up. Chen was shocked that Ran was able to kill a member of his team again. The rest of the team couldn't believe what was happening. Ran emerged from the smoke after the lightning struck, saying that their average level was laughable. Ran arrogantly called the dead Liu Chen a real weakling. Chen realized that Ran was hiding his strength and was not so simple. He told the team that they would attack together and kill him. Jan looked at the attackers, asking why they were sure he was alone. Chan used the skill Will of the Winner. The attackers were immediately cut down by Bansheet's claws, and Ran received another level increase. Banshita called those present arrogant fools for deciding to attack Jean. Bansheet slashed at the next attacker with her claws. At the same time, Jean moved forward, taking part in the battle. Banshita reported that there was one last enemy left as she stood next to Jang among the dead, and asked for permission to deal with him. Ran placed his hand on her shoulder, telling her to take it slow, and she flinched at the contact. Ran looked towards Chen, saying that he was his. Chen said that Ran managed to surprise him, but he saw through Ran's plan after noticing the weak mana emission, and Banshita calling him master. Chen pointed his finger at Ran, accusing him of no longer being human and of denying himself for the sake of revenge. Ran said that this happened because of Cheng's actions, and he had no right to blame him. Chen laughed, saying that he had prepared for contingencies after meeting the 5th-level snake. Chen took out a syringe and injected something into his neck. The empty syringe fell to the ground. Chen said that this drug would allow him to master the transcendental level, and he bought it from Country M. Chen became a middle silver level yellow name, saying that he had wanted to take revenge for a long time. Ran said that leveling up was a waste of time for Chen, and he had no chance of winning because it was night. Chen didn't listen to his words and rushed to attack, considering himself incredibly strong at this moment. Ran jumped up using the darkness proximity skill, and Chen noticed the movement, saying that Ran would not be able to escape. Chen continued to try to keep an eye on Ran, not understanding why he couldn't keep an eye on him even after taking the drug. Jan inflicted cutting wounds on his back, adding a bleeding effect on top. Chen didn't have time to follow the movements, receiving a new wound from the front with the same effect. Chen screamed in pain as he felt the effects of the bleeding skill. Banshita was shocked that Ran was enjoying torturing his opponent, even though he had the chance to finish it all with one blow. Chen shouted for Ran to show himself, saying that he could not lose to such a worthless person. Chen even bled from his eyes as he promised to kill Ran with his own hands. The next moment, Chen's body was pierced by a sword. Jan said that you should treat people the same way you want them to treat you, and asked if their mutual friend was hungry. Ran pulled the sword out of Chung with a sharp movement. Chen began to fall, screaming in pain. Chen fell to the ground, still bleeding. Chen called Ran a bastard and told him not to torture him. Ran took out a potion to heal Chung's wounds, not intending to kill him so easily, since he himself had recently shouted that he would finish him off. Ran will restore 500 health points to Chung. The next moment, Ran pierced Chung's leg with his sword. Chen screamed as he felt intense pain and was once again given the bleeding effect. Ran dragged Chung along, saying that he still had many potions, and he would make Chung experience pain and despair. Ran said that in the end he would throw Chen into the snake's throat and he would become dinner. Banshita realized that she was right, and Ran was indeed enjoying Chung's pain, just like he had with her in the arena. Meanwhile, in the city of Jie, Yu Wu was informed that the technical department had detected a burst of magic. His assistant reported that the activity was not far from Chen's team. Yu Wuyi drank tea with an angry face, unhappy that Ran had hidden from him for so many days. Meanwhile, Ran dragged Chen to the snake, Banshita standing nearby. Chen begged Ran to have mercy when Ran asked if Chen recognized the snake. Chen was in pain, saying that he didn't want to be eaten. Ran slit Chen's throat with a sharp movement, gaining a level up. Ran easily threw Chen's corpse towards the titanic beast. The beast caught Chen's corpse in midair in its mouth. The snake turned around and crawled deeper into the forest, having barely gotten his dinner. Ran realized that the snake was not hostile due to his and Banshita's nature. Ran received a notification about level 30 and a new skill. John has acquired the heart-to-heart communication skill, allowing him to create an exclusive skill with a follower. Ran remembered how powerful the Blood Blade was, and how Nico's soul responded, and he would gain access to the Blood God's skills for 10 minutes. Ran thought about Shui and Banshee, knowing that once their affection reached 100%, it would be a lot of good for him and them. The window sounded an alarm, notifying John that a dangerous object was approaching him, and that he should leave the location immediately. Ran turned to Banshita, telling her to leave immediately. Yu Wu flew towards them using his wings. Yu Wu quickly landed at the location where the magical energy was detected. Yu Wu was sure that he felt someone's presence and noticed blood on the ground. Yu Wu wondered where everyone could have gone, thinking that they couldn't have disappeared into thin air. Suddenly, a loud impact was heard in that place, raising dust around it. The snake rushed at Yu Wuya with its mouth open. Yu Wuyi rose into the air a second before impact, unhappy with the distraction and thinking that he didn't have time for the kite. Yu Wuyi froze, noticing something. Yu Wu turned to look at the snake, noticing that it didn't look symmetrical. Yu Wu noticed that on the right side of the snake, one horn was larger than the other. Yu Wuyi became angry, calling the snake ugly because it was born that way, and said that it made him sick to look at. The system greeted John in a spatial pocket where all his equipment would be stored. Ran was glad that the system warned him of the danger, assuming that it was Yu Wu. Jan thought that he had now reached the peak of his power, and decided that he needed to be extremely careful. The system reminded me to select a weapon because its equipment was locked. Ran thought about how he wouldn't be able to leave the arena until the fight was over as he looked at the weapons. Ran noticed that the weapon's stats had increased significantly compared to last time due to its level increase. Jan noted the variety of weapons, realizing that there was everything here for attack or defense. Jan remembered the cucumber he used last time and thought that any weapon could come in handy. John chose a weapon, deciding that he had found the right one. In John's hands was a whip for lovemaking, which added excitement to both parties and the power of the attack. Jan decided to take the whip, thinking that he would be able to dodge the enemy's attack. The system asked to choose a buff for the next battle. Jan had a choice between an adventure, a partner, and a shield. John decided to choose a partner, believing that this was the most logical option in the face of an unknown enemy. The system notified that a subordinate was being called. At the same time, the shower was turned on in Zhu's house. Sue washed herself, wondering why Ran hadn't returned yet. She was worried that he had met Yu Wuya or gotten into some other trouble. Zhu tried to calm herself down by reminding herself that she had seen his strength and that she shouldn't worry. Suddenly, a glow appeared around Shui and she tried to understand what was happening. Ran managed to notice that Shui was naked while the system was eliminating her unacceptable appearance. Zhu covered herself even when she was in her house clothes and asked Ran if he saw everything and why he called her. Ran looked away, saying that he hadn't had time to see anything and had summoned her for the sake of skills, and Zhui tried to understand what the whip was doing in his hands. Sally, the commentator, began covering the fight. Ran and Zhui watched as the second-level guardian, the Inferno Witch who controlled the secret flame, appeared. Balo, the fire demon, noticed that two were coming against her, but said that she would not give up like Bansheed. Balo promised to turn the entire arena into ashes. Balo swung the fireball and threw it at Ran and Zhui. The fireball grew to a huge size as it flew towards Ran and Zhui. Chen barely managed to dodge. John tried to understand how the small fireball became so big. Jan turned around, realizing the power of the fire that had burned down part of the arena. Jan looked at the whip, realizing that it was too risky to use it on Balo due to the strength buff. Jen realized that nowhere in the instructions did it say that the target had to be the enemy. Balo continued her fiery attacks, saying that she didn't care how many opponents were in front of her. Balo threw several fireballs at them, screaming that she could see right through them. A wall of ice rose in the path of the fireballs. Fireballs crashed into the wall of ice. Sue stated that she hated fire, promising the overconfident Balo that she would put it out. Balo got angry, saying that she hated the ice element and promised that Sue would no longer have time to waste. Sue just chuckled, telling Balo to go ahead. She leaned down, waiting for another attack. The next moment, a whip struck Sue on the butt. Zhu couldn't help but moan as she entered a state of excitement, and her attack power increased. Zue asked Ran what he was doing and why he hit her, but he firmly said that plans had changed, and Zue would have to be patient for a little while. Ran noted that Zhu's posture was perfect and continued to beat her with the whip. Zhu tried to hold back her moans as her arousal and strength increased. Sally couldn't understand what was going on, and why Ran was beating his subordinate, and the screams were getting louder. Balo was shocked to see what Ran and Zue were doing right there in the arena, and tried to figure out what they were doing. Zhu's affection grew as Ran lashed her with the whip. Zhu's affection has reached 90%. Zhu said that even though she was whipped in public, she did not feel any resentment towards it, and she liked it more and more. Zhu's attack power increased by 69%, plus 10% from Ran's combat officer title. Ran said that he had never experienced anything like this before, being in the same excited state as Yue. The ice wall broke, unable to withstand the onslaught of Balo's fireballs. Balo looked down on them, saying that she had to try not to finish them off. Balo prepared to launch a powerful attack, telling Ran and Zue to think about how they would not burn alive, since they were no match for her. Sally was shocked that Balo would use his technique, believing that she was irritated by Ran and Zhu's behavior. Balo used the lava breathing technique, directing it downwards towards her opponents. Zhu looked at the approaching attack and told Ran that this was their fight. Zhu, with the marks from the whip, prepared to counter the attack using her ice attribute, telling Balo to feel what real cold was. The huge flame met with Zhu's ice. Zhu's ice completely froze Balo's lava breath. Balo didn't believe that this was possible. The ice rose up to her and froze Balo. Sally called Zhu a person with unimaginable strength, saying that she turned the entire fight around with one blow. Ran and Zhu looked at each other as they were named the winners and given the right to move on. The system informed Zhan of his reward in the form of fire resistance and a point for unlocked skills. Zhan was offered to move to the next level. He thought about the fact that strength allows him to continue, but excitement creates difficulties. Ran looked at Shui, saying that she had performed well, and asked how she felt. Shu said she had never felt so excited that even her legs were tingling. She said it was strange but very pleasant. Ran thought that Shui was delirious, and he might also lose control if he continued. Ran decided that the arena could wait and that Shui needed to be returned home, which would help avoid meeting Yu Wu. Zhu said that she felt more and more pain in her body and asked Ran for a massage when they returned to her home, and he agreed. The system warned that the clothes issued by the system were confiscated. Seum began to cover herself, not understanding where her clothes had gone. Sometime later, in Shu's apartment, Sue had specially put on black silk for the massage and told Ran that she was ready and he could start when she settled down on the sofa. Jan began to massage her legs, feeling the pleasant fabric over which his hands slid easily. Jan realized that the effect of the whip had not subsided at all, and that it was only intensified by physical contact. Zhu felt the excitement spread throughout her body from the wonderful massage. Hers increased to 94. Zhu thought that Ran had stolen her first kiss, and now he was feeling her all over, and he definitely must want her. Ran began to take off his shirt, noticing that the affection had become 96%, offering to make up for lost time, as Zhue wanted in her dream. Shue was extremely excited, but tried to refuse, saying that she only wanted a massage and had not had time to mentally prepare herself. Jan called her disobedient when she addressed him informally, and said that she was punished with a whip. He asked her in her ear what she should call him. Shu called Ran Lord, stuttering slightly, her affection increasing to 98%. Zhu's affection increased to 100% that night. Chan was once again rewarded with the ability to activate the blood peak once. When the morning came, he received a notification. Ran woke up when Shui called him. Sue sat on his thighs, saying that there was a stream of energy flowing from her body, and it felt absolutely amazing. Sue was delighted. Her level had reached the Star Diamond level, and she asked Ran Li to show her a new world. Sue was both bragging and complaining, saying that she was overwhelmed with something. Ran was pleased with her new strength, deeming her abilities a good choice for an opponent of the highest level. Ran recalled how he pulled the sword out of Nico and told Shui that she could now make special equipment too. Shui became interested in trying it out. Ran activated the soul resonance, and energy began to gather in Zhu's chest. Sue noticed something coming out of her chest and began to worry that it would not suit her. Sue saw the black crown that even had demon blood in it, and asked if it matched her temperament. Ran said that this equipment was unrivaled, but told her not to be arrogant because of the crown on her head. Jan saved and hid the equipment, and after a while began to get ready to leave and return to the village of the succubi. Ran turned to Sue, asking if she could lend him some money, which stumped her into asking again. Sue was sure that after what they had divided, all her things were also his things, and he could take as much as he wanted. Ran took the money to Sue, and before leaving, he dropped by his younger sister's school to slip it into her backpack. In the city, he found himself a random victim for his daily task, who couldn't even figure out who bit her on the neck. John knew that no one would recognize him if they saw him, and he hoped that his sister would use the money wisely while he was moving out of the city. Meanwhile, in Hongcheng Company, in Jui's office, Xu thought back to last night with Ran, feeling ashamed of herself for not being able to concentrate on work. She was interrupted by a subordinate, and Xue blurted out that she was not thinking about anything at all and was preparing for the meeting. The assistant reported a witness to the kidnapping of people from Hongcheng, men who were with Xue when she met Ran, at the factory of an elite center in the suburbs, closer to evening. The men were tied up and repeated over and over again that they had seen only bones since they arrived and knew nothing about Yu Wen's death. One of the men accused Wang Meng of bullying the weak because he could not find the killer. Wang Meng became angry, saying that they seemed to be tired of living. The next moment, the warehouse doors were knocked down with great force. Wang Meng turned around, asking who dared to disturb them. Xue called him a donkey, saying that she had finally found him and threatened him to bring her people back. The men were delighted to see their boss, and Wang Meng recognized her. Wang Meng asked how she had gotten through the dozens of evolved guards around the building without being noticed. Xu said that they had all already turned into ice cubes. One began to use the skill, saying that Wang Meng would suffer the same fate, and suggested that he try out her new skills. A huge snowflake flew towards Wang Meng. Wang Meng watched them approach. Wang Meng called it a trick for insects, and said that it could not freeze his fire fist. Wang Meng said that Xue should have thanked Yu Wu last time, but now she won't get off so miserably. Xu assured him that it was his bad luck to be with her, and summoned 16 ice discs. Ice discs in the shape of snowflakes headed towards Wang Meng from different directions. Wang Meng created a shield around himself to protect himself from the ice discs. Wang Meng was confident in himself, because he was the best among the gold evolutionists. He believed that Xue had no chance of winning. Zhu chuckled when she heard that he was the best among the gold ones, and firmly stated that she was no longer the same as she used to be. Wang Meng rushed at Xue, who shouted that he hadn't changed one bit. Wang Meng was amazed that Xue was able to control the disc fragments as they slammed into his skin. Zhu used her skill to make the ice flower bloom. Ice formations formed in the places where the debris had hit Wang Meng. Large-sized ice growths formed all over Wang Meng's body, and he stopped. Wang Meng realized that the discs were just a decoy to lower his guard, and said that he had underestimated Xue. Xu admitted that he was not stupid, but it was already too late for Wang Meng because she controlled the fragments that entered his blood. Xu told Wang Meng not to act rashly and then she would spare his life, and walked over to her subordinates who were praising her. Wang Meng felt humiliated that, as Yu Wu's deputy, he lost to a woman. Wang Meng completely ignited himself, saying that Xue would not scare him, and he could evaporate the ice even in his own body. Sparks of flame fell from Wang Meng onto the floor as he got rid of the ice on his body. Wang Meng went to attack Xue using his fire fist. Xu only called his actions too brazen. The next moment, ice formed in Wang Meng's heart. The ice from the heart grew, completely tearing apart Wang Meng's body. Wang Meng died in that instant, his open, lifeless eyes staring at the ceiling. Xue said that Wang Meng's fire was no match for her ice, since she was no longer a gold-level practitioner. Xu folded her arms under her chest, saying that she was already at the star level. Silence reigned in the warehouse. Xu approached the subordinates who had been kidnapped and asked how they were, and they replied that they only had scratches. Xue tensed up, feeling the smell of death. Xue turned around, trying to figure out where this feeling came from. Xu's eyes widened when she saw the source of these sensations. Yu Wu stood in the aisle of the warehouse, praising her for leveling up in 2 days and surprising him, an aura of death swirling around him. Yu Wu said that he couldn't stand 2 types of people, those who had external flaws and those who dared to lie to him. Yu Wu was angry when he said that Xue had managed to exceed all expectations and hit the jackpot. At the same time, Zhan returned to the succubus village, his thoughts filled with Bradso's bloody blade. Jan had already used it but hadn't studied it thoroughly. This evening he decided to study its characteristics in more detail, noting the night bonus. Ran was amazed by the level buff from the blade, and realized that the weapon would become stronger as he became stronger. Nico stood at a distance, watching as Ran, who had immediately gone to look for her upon her return, held the blade as if it were her body. Ran saw the level up notifications, and realized that Xue was fighting someone. An increase of 3 levels at once indicated a difficult opponent. Suddenly, Ran realized that she could only fight someone from the elite center now, and Xue was in danger. The next moment he was already rushing towards her as fast as he could across the sky. Jan pointed the way to Nico, who he was hanging on during the flight, and asked if she could go faster. Nico was shaking from the close contact, saying that she was already having a hard time concentrating and was at her limit from Zhan. Yu Wu was surrounded by a terrifying aura. Xue was surprised by his speed as he appeared next to her in an instant. Yu Wu swung his fist at her, telling Xue to feel his wrath. The impact sent Yu Wuxiu flying out of the warehouse and into the forest beyond. Along with Xue, her subordinates also flew out. Jewel was amazed at how much power was concentrated in one blow. Yu Wu was very strong. Xu tried to think of what to do, knowing that her subordinates would not help in any way. Xu summoned her ice discs, gathering the maximum number of them. Yu Wu just laughed, saying that it was commendable, but that was probably her limit, and he didn't really care about her level. Yu Wu adjusted his glasses, stating that it was nothing to him. Su directed an attack at him, not understanding where he got so much confidence from. Yu Wu immediately blocked it with a deadly flow skill. His skill blew away the ice discs around him without much difficulty. Sui was amazed by his strength as Yu Wu blew away all of her snowflakes in one fell swoop. Yu Wu used the next skill, his eyes lit up. Zhu didn't understand what was happening because she couldn't move under his gaze. Yu Wu moved towards her without wasting any time. Yu Wu swung his fist, preparing to strike. Zhu thought that she would die right there and then, regretting that she would never see Ran again. The next moment, something filled with extreme power fell from the sky in front of Shui. Zhui tried to understand what happened, feeling a familiar sensation. Su felt joy after recognizing Ran's energy. Ran caught Yu Wu's fist and said that Shui was his woman, and he didn't dare to raise his hands. Ran once again used the blood peak that lasted for 10 minutes to be able to resist the legendary level. Yu Wu finally understood why Shui was protecting Ran. But thanks to his actions, Ran finally appeared in front of him. Yu Wu was angry. He said that he would finally be able to take revenge on his brother's killer. John asked him again about the place, saying that there was no need for it. With one sharp jerk, Ran tore off Yu Wu's arm, which he was about to hit Shui with. Yu Wu screamed, lost his hand, and pressed his healthy one to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Xu fell to the ground, feeling that she no longer had the strength in her legs. Jan turned to her, asking for forgiveness for being late. Su sat on the ground with wet eyes, not believing that Ran had actually come to save her. Ran told Nico to cure Shui, adding that he was running out of time and needed to kill Yu Wu. Yu Wu didn't agree that Ran would be able to kill him if he managed to rip off his arm, since he was a genius who had reached the legendary level at the age of 13. Yu Wu shouted that a worthless person like Ran would never understand his strength, but now he could witness it. A huge force emanated from Yu Wu. Yu Wu appeared before Ran in the form of a six-winged fallen angel with a scythe in his hand, the severed arm now made of energy. Yu Wu said that the braid was breaking his symmetry, but the transformation required it. Yu Wu said that Ran would pay for the piece of his aesthetics, since he dared to tear off his hand. Yu Wu called John an asymmetrical lower demonic creature and said that he would cleanse the world of his existence. Sui realized that Yu Wu had not fought her with his full strength, and Ran would not have an easy time in this battle. The system offered a reward for killing the target within 5 minutes, which surprised Ran with his death wish for Yu Wu. Yu Wu used 6 deadly slashes aiming at Ran. Ran watched as the attack approached him. John didn't even dodge, taking the attack on himself. Dust rose up around him. Ran asked Yu Wu if it was really a deadly attack. Jan swung his sword, saying that he would show him what a real blow was. Ran used the bloodstream skill. A stream of blood emerged from Ran's sword, which Yu Wu managed to dodge. Yu Wu called it not bad, looking at the ground split by the impact, but noticed that John could not keep up with his speed. The next moment, Yu Wu's second arm was cut off. Yu Wu was angry, not understanding how this was possible, since he had managed to dodge. Ran called him an idiot, saying that he had a stream sword, and said that it was all for the sake of Yu Wu's beloved symmetry. Yu Wu immediately soared into the sky, raising a pile of dust from the ground. John looked at him in the sky, not believing that he had escaped, and thought that there was less and less time left. Ran used the skill with wings, telling Yu Wu that he would definitely say goodbye to his life today. He had 4 minutes of skill left. Yu Wu was pleased that Ran had followed him, confident that he had no equal in the sky. With the help of the fallen angel's power, Yu Wu grew his arm, thinking that today the sky would become Ran's grave. Ran was already behind him, asking Yu Wu, who was surprised by his speed, what he was showing off so much. The next moment, Ran gave Yu Wu a hard slap in the face. The slap sent Yu Wu falling straight to the ground. Yu Wu fell to the ground with great force. A crater formed under Yu Wu from the force of his fall. Yu Wu, with Ran's handprint on his cheek, began to talk about his father, saying that Ran would not be able to kill him because the entire city of Jay would become his enemy. John noticed their similarity to his brother, who had remembered his father in the same way before his death, and called complaining to his parents childish. Ran shouted that by killing Yu Wu, he would only gain peace. Ran sent a stream of power from his blade towards Yu Wu. The current washed over Yu Wu, who was still lying on his back. Yu Wu screamed in pain as Ran received the level-up notification. Where the small crater had once been, there was now a deep hole in which Yu Wu was buried. Seiyu and Nico were impressed by John's strength as they watched the battle from the sidelines. Ran received a notification that he had reached level 36 and a new skill. A flow that could deal a powerful blow with a flow of blood. Ran saw a notification about the completion of an urgent task and a special reward in the form of a small blood moon. Jan decided that it was a little weird, but it would pass for a huge improvement without the blood spike. Ran sank to the ground, declaring that the problem had been fixed, and asked if Nico and Shui were okay. Sui replied sheepishly that it was only thanks to Ran's potion, and Nico rushed towards him. Nico grabbed Jean with her hands and feet, saying that they were okay, but only thanks to his help. Ran suggested that Zhu go with them so that she would not have to deal with the special center anymore, and Nico supported the idea. Zhui said that she would like to, but she would have to stay for Ran's sake to gather more information. Zhu said that she couldn't allow the number of Ran's enemies to increase due to her own whim. Jan noted that she was still thinking about his safety even in this situation, and told her to watch her own safety and call him if anything happened. City B, private nursing home. An elderly man in hospital pajamas was coughing. Yu Tianxiong, the president of the elite center, looked at the handkerchief with blood, surprised that things were already so bad. Yu Tianxiong decided that he did not want to die in a nursing home, and wanted to return to the center. A few days later, everyone learned of Yu Wu's death. Yu Tianxiong was inconsolable when he learned of his son's death. Yu Tianxiong gathered a meeting of the most influential evolutionists in J City in order to fulfill his desire for revenge. Zhao Yifei from the Evolutionists Association raised the issue of high-level evolutionists' deaths in G City. Zhao Yifei said that every resident is the backbone of the city, and they should discuss how to deal with this. Yu Tianxiong suggested that an elite squad should be assembled to find the beast responsible for killing his son. Bai Liliang from Senlan reminded that high-level evolutionists are a valuable resource on which the lives of ordinary citizens depend. Bai Lilian said that he would not take such a risk, since no one could guarantee the safety of his people. Liu Zhenyi called Bai a brother, reminding him of the great responsibility that came with being strong, which infuriated him. Liu Zhenyi from the Justice Guild said that his men would do their utmost to catch the beast, as they were sinful enough to allow it to happen. Li Hongping of Hongcheng appreciated Liu's enthusiasm, but reminded her that the opponent was serious. Li Hongping said that she saw the battle site, and guessed that the beast had ninth-order strength, and few could stand against it alone. Li Hongping asked Yu Tianxiong if it was possible that the beast was only targeting the elite center since only their subordinates had died. Yu Tianxiong gave in to anger, saying that Hongcheng was suspicious because Shui survived after being in the place where the beast was, and that was suspicious. Zhao Yifei told everyone to stop, assuring them that she had understood their opinions. Zhao Yifei said that there was no need to act rashly, and she would ask for reinforcements so that the risk of being attacked by the beast would be less great. Yu Tianxiong began to say that it would take at least a month, and he was not willing to wait that long. Yu Tianxiong said that they should try to destroy the beast by gathering the forces of all the evolutionists in the city. Zhao Yifei advised Tianxiong to return home and gain strength since he was very ill. That same night, Ran thought that he didn't have much time left, and he needed to become stronger before the evolutionists of J City found him. Jan looked at the statuses of Banshida and Balo, deciding to start pumping affection with Banshida, suspecting that her sensitivity was the fault of the cucumber. Ran activated the Will of the Victor skill, and Banshida appeared right in front of him, saying that she was at his service. Banshid was surprised to see that they were not on a battlefield and asked why she had been called. John extended his hand to her, saying that he wanted to take a short walk with her. Banshida was taken aback, not understanding what he meant, and assumed that he wanted to have sex with her. Jan grabbed her hand, deciding to ignore the question. Ran went ahead, proposing to set out on a journey, and Banshida agreed with her master. Banshida was embarrassed, feeling the temperature of John's body. It was the first time she touched a man like this. Her affection grew. Ran was pleased to see that the non-attachment was growing from a simple touch, and thought that the activation of the skill was just around the corner. Banshida followed Zhang across the field, her affection rising to 60%. The ears of corn touched Banshida's body in different places. Banshida flinched as she felt a tickling sensation as something touched her bottom. There were too many ears of corn, and they touched her body in different places. Banshida was too sensitive. She couldn't stand the tickling sensation all over her body. Banshida compared the ears of grass touching her body to Jean's hands, and didn't understand why they went here. Attachment increased sharply to 75%. Banshida complained to Jean about the ears of corn, saying that she was alternately hot and cold. Banshida said she couldn't stand it if this didn't stop. Her skin was covered in sweat. Jan looked at her with a slight blush of excitement, realizing that something had to be done, otherwise he would have to withdraw the call again. Jan decided to act differently to correct the situation. Jan lifted Banshida onto his back, saying that this way the ears of corn would not touch her. Banshida's affection has increased to 90%. Banshida said that now, instead of ears of corn, she presses herself against Jean and rubs against him. And this seems more exciting than the ears of corn. Banshid complained that she was about to lose control when her affection reached 95% and asked for forgiveness. Ran froze when he heard Banshida's words that she had to leave. Ran immediately threw Banshida off of him and onto the ground. Banshid screamed as she found herself on the cold ground. Banshida asked what Ran was planning, saying that her body was burning more and more because of him, and she could not go further with him. Jan saw that the affection was almost full. He said that he would not let her go for the sake of an important matter. Banshida was scared, thinking that Ran would take her by force. She didn't want him to rush. She thought it would be wonderful if they had a relationship. Banshida closed her eyes, knowing that she couldn't resist John if he ordered her. Banshida felt John's hand touch her chin and didn't know what to do, assuming that she should undress. Ran tried to calm her down, saying that she was important to him as the first subordinate he had led out of the arena, and reminded her of the simple walk. Banshid herself was surprised by her dirty thoughts, and her affection increased to 98%. Ran apologized for insisting on her presence despite her difficulties, and admitted that he had a very difficult life. Jan looked at the lake, saying that he comes here every time he has a hard time coping with something, and it gives him courage and perseverance. Banshida was amazed that Ran showed his soft side and opened up to her as if they were a real couple. Banshida's affection increased to 100% when she heard that she occupied a special place in Ran's heart. Ran saw that the hidden reward this time was the Blood Manor, and he realized that he was right that he would not get the Blood Peak for the third time. The Bloody Estate was a quickly built estate in a deserted area, where health would be restored quickly. Ran thought that this was a good reward in the long term as a place of rest and recovery for him and his harem. The soul resonance skill activated, and Banshida was surprised to feel something coming out of her chest. A spiritual necklace appeared from her chest that was capable of granting immunity to magical attacks. John decided that this necklace would work real miracles against the systemic enemy. Ran told Banshida that this was an exclusive weapon from the union of their souls, and only the two of them could use it. Banshida was in shock, feeling her body go numb and her heart beat. She was surprised, thinking that they had given birth to a child. Jan made plans to recruit subordinates in the arena and quickly pump up affection, and decided to try the Bloody Estate at least once. Ran believed that even if he was unlucky with the Blood Peak, he needed to find a territory for the Blood Manor. Banshida hugged him from behind, distracting him from thoughts about the future. Jan asked her what she was doing, surprised that she had made contact herself. Banshida herself was surprised. She admitted that she did not expect that Ran would take a place in her heart. Banshida was happy that their souls were compatible and connected, and that she had just given birth to a child from Ran's soul. Banshida asked if she and Zhang should reunite physically. Ran was shocked by Banshida's words, thinking that she had lost her head because the soul resonance had gone too far. Jan turned to face her, and Banshida stood on her toes. Ran kissed Banshida, still looking dumbfounded by her desire. The fish swam in pairs in the pond while Ran and Banshida made love to each other on the shore. Banshida lay on the shore in bliss, her level having increased to 5. Banshida said that she was full of admiration, and Ran raised her to the skies, showing her an unforgettable experience. Banshida suddenly disappeared, saying that she could not stand it any longer, and left John alone on the shore of the pond. Ran wondered if he should do something about her sensitivity before it became her weakness in battle. Ran looked up at the moon, deciding that heading to the bloody arena under the moonlight would be a good idea. The exclusive weapons remained with Jean when he entered the combat space. Dan chose a restoration potion from the equipment when given the choice, deciding that he didn't need a weapon other than his own. The system offered him to choose a buff for the upcoming battle. The choice was rage, adventure, and strong armor. Jan decided to take a chance, believing that in difficult times he needed to make the most of it, even through risk. When Ran entered the arena, Sally greeted him with comments. Sally began to announce Jan's opponent, calling her strong and swift like an arrow. Jan heard the sound of hooves. Centaur, the 5th Order Centaur, Knight of the Blazing Sun and Silver Moon, ran into the arena. Tur immediately recognized Jan as a difficult warrior, since he was able to defeat Balo. Jan was surprised to see such a rare species and asked if she was too loud. The Tur began to glow, telling Jan to show his strength since he was mocking her. Ran felt a state of provocation that forced him to attack for some time. Ran swung his sword twice, sending streams of blood towards Tur. The Tur closed with a barrier to block attacks. The attacks came straight at the barrier that managed to save her. Tur noticed that Jan was incredibly strong, since she had to absorb one of his attacks with her shield. Tur shouted at Jan to continue the attacks and not stop, shouting for him to hit with all his might. Tur shouted at Jan not to hold back, and he shouted that he was looking for the right moment. Ran continued to attack the barrier that surrounded the Tur. Ran knew that he had to get rid of the provocation. He could only resist it thanks to the power of Banshida. Jan jumped back, wondering what to do next against a shield that he couldn't penetrate with his blade and buff. Tur understood that it was too early to celebrate the victory. Wondering if Jan had the ability to resist mind control, Tur looked away, deciding that everything was still under her control. She believed that she had enough time despite his amount of power. The moon spear was charging and already had more energy than it needed. Tur screamed for Jana to feel the power of the silver moon. Tur struck the ground with her spear. Jan was thrown back by the shockwave of attacks that returned to him from the moon spear. Ran landed with his feet on the arena wall, breaking it, and acknowledged the power of her weapon, which contained a lot of his spiritual power. Ran realized that the spear had absorbed his power while he had attacked her out of provocation, and she had converted it into her own attack. Jan thought, looking at the Tur, that she hits harder if he starts to attack harder. Sally continued to comment on their fight, wondering if Ran could overcome the shield's capabilities. Jan jumped towards Tur, pushing off from the wall. Jan threw the blade while he was in flight. Tur tried to understand why he threw the sword, carefully watching Jen from under the shield. Tur tried to provoke Jan into another attack by saying that she felt disappointed that he could decide to quit fighting. Jan was again under provocation, but he hit the shield with his bare hands. Tur realized he had figured out her strategy when Ran jumped to the side. Tur said she had a great epiphany when she analyzed her options and made a plan. Tur rushed forward, her hooves kicking up the sand of the arena. Tur decided not to rely on the insurmountable defense anymore, because she is a level 5 beast. Tur asked if John had no weapon, and asked what he did when she saw the blood. Ran laughed as his shoulder was pierced by a spear, and asked who said he should only use a sword. Ran activated the blood prison shackle skill, and began to affect the blood that sprayed towards Tur from his wounds. Blood spurted in all directions, creating something like tentacles. Tur dropped her shield. Ran used his blood to bind Tur with his skill. Tur panicked, asking Jean if this was his original goal, assuming he was forcing her to act for this purpose. Tur acknowledged Jean's intelligence, but said that his thoughts were not pure. Ran asked why Tur thought he couldn't handle her stage 5 shield when he was on stage 3. Ran straddled Tur's back, saying that he had specially changed the form of the skill to take possession of her. Jan said that he would tame her by taking her neck in a grip. Sally was shocked that Ran was able to tame Tur, admitting that she blushed when she watched it. Tur was shocked that Jean had taken possession of her, the first time she had felt someone riding her, especially amazed that it was a man. Tur felt how tightly Jean was holding her. The sensation was painful and exciting. Tur thought she had to fight to the end when she realized that at this rate she might lose consciousness. The Tur struck the ground with its hoof. Tur began to prance, saying that Jean would suffer along with her if he did not let her go now. The ghosts watching the fight were delighted by the spectacle. Jan called Tur a frisky horse and said that all he could do was be rougher with her. Tur felt her eyes roll back from lack of air. Sally was shocked to see that Tur had passed out from Jean's grip and was completely incapacitated. Ran drank a restorative potion while standing next to Tur, who lay unconscious when her victory was announced. John tried to find out what reward he would receive from the adventure. Jen read the notifications, receiving a point for unlocked skills and 1,200 defense points. The system asked if Jean was ready to move on to the next stage. Jan decided to take a chance, deciding that one more sip of the health potion would be enough for him, since he could keep the reward and continue to enjoy the bonuses. Jan clicked on agree to move on. Tur began to disappear from the arena, to be replaced by guards from the next floor. Sally was glad that Jean decided to go further and suggested inviting the next guard. Ran was confident that he was in great shape. He was excited, thinking that he had not been able to use his abilities properly. Suddenly, thick tentacles appeared in the arena. Jan reacted immediately, chopping down the tentacles that were reaching out to him. Ran thought that his opponent was impatient, since she attacked before she entered the arena. John looked at the tentacles in front of him, holding his sword at the ready. Bid, an anthropomorphic monster with tentacles, sighed, saying that Ran was too delicious to contain. Bid licked her lips, asking John if he was looking forward to the exciting game. Chen rushed at her, saying it was time to stretch, and called her a horny half-squid girl. Bid sidestepped the attack, calling Jean an impatient boy. Bid dodged the attacks, adding that she enjoyed fighting with him. Bid suggested finding out who would need whom next, directing her tentacles at Jean. Ran jumped back to avoid the tentacle attack. The tentacles struck the arena at the place where Ran had stood just a moment before. Chen told her to try it if she wanted to need it. The tentacles struck the arena floor, burrowing underground. Tentacles emerged from under the arena floor around Jean. Ran realized that the tentacles had surrounded him and tried to understand what Bid was trying to achieve. Bid wrapped her tentacles around Jean's legs. Then Bid wrapped her tentacles around Jean's arms, holding the one holding the sword especially tightly. Ran realized he had been tricked when he noticed that Bid had caught him just as he was losing his concentration due to talking to her. Bid, with her tongue hanging out, asked what kind of torture Zhang wanted to experience. She said that just the thought of it made her happy. Sally continued to comment, noting that Jean was immobilized and adding that Bida's tentacles were unusual. Sally watched the fight, thinking it was presumptuous to challenge two fifth-order beasts at once. John felt a tentacle tighten around his neck. Jan felt that these tentacles were poisonous, and he would soon kick the bucket. Bide said that Jean had already lost as soon as she caught him, because the tentacles have papillae that secrete powerful toxins. Bide said she would spare him if he called her a good big sister. Bidet exclaimed, feeling something sudden. Chan bit through her tentacles, deactivating the poison and gaining a point to strength. Ran disappeared from the tentacles when Bide lost her concentration. Bide called it a disgrace that Ran used his mouth and referred to herself in the third person as angry. Bide didn't understand where Jean was when he suddenly disappeared from her sight. Jan became invisible for a short time and drank a restorative potion. Chan realized that he might be lost if the fight dragged on, because Bide's tentacles dealt a lot of damage. Bide tried to predict which side Ran would attack from, using his stealth skill. Bidet felt movement from below as a bloody spike appeared directly beneath her. Bide barely managed to dodge. Her chest was wounded. Bloody spikes began to appear all over the arena. Bidet thought this move was disgusting on Jan's part, thinking that he would not be able to pursue her forever. Bide looked at the arena floor, noticing that there were spikes everywhere, and there was no place left for her to stop. Spikes shot up across the arena, rendering Bide unable to move. Bidet was breathing heavily. Bide was angry, having narrowly avoided being pierced by bloody spikes, and called Jean ruthless. Jean was already behind him, saying that Bide herself forced him. Bide turned around, realizing that he was going to hit her from behind, and realized that Ran was too fast. Ran swung his blade towards Bid, sending a stream of blood towards her. Bidet's blood was spilled everywhere. Bidet looked in shock at the place where her tentacles used to be. Bid fell to the arena floor and screamed in pain. Bide mentally scolded Jean, thinking that she would never forgive him while the bleeding effect was cast on her. Ran thought about how much damage one poison from a 5th-tier beast had dealt him. It was still dealing damage to him. Ran took another sip of the recovery potion, thinking that he was as tired as a dog. Bid trembled as she watched John's actions. Jan asked Bid what she could do without her tentacles, and said that her end was sealed. Bid began screaming for mercy, saying that she was wrong. Bid released a magical attack from the third eye on her forehead. Ran felt the necklace he got from Banshita take effect. Bid watched in confusion as her magical attack passed through John without causing any damage. Bid asked what happened. Not understanding what happened with her skills, she looked shocked. John leaned towards her, saying angrily that women were truly hopeless. Bid was truly scared and started screaming that she had made an irreparable mistake and truly admitted her defeat. Jan dealt another wound to Bid with his blade. Bid coughed as she fell to the arena floor, covered in blood. Ran said that he didn't believe her words, and Bid would have to undergo strict training in the future. Sally declared John the winner of the 4th stage, celebrating his magnificent 2 victories in a row. Ran was surprised to see that he had acquired the tentacle strangulation skill, thanks to the adventure among other rewards. Sally continued to say that every 5th stage a boss guardian appears, and the difficulty increases exponentially. Sally warned Jean that the next guardian would be a legendary level boss, Medusa Gorgon. Sally warned Jean that he should think twice before facing the next boss. Jan thanked her for the warning, thinking that it would be interesting. Morning in the village of Succubi. Empty jars of restorative potions and bandages were scattered on the floor. Ran tried to stop Nico with the bandages since he had already drunk the potion. But Nico said that this was not something to be taken lightly. Nico was very worried because she saw so many injuries on John's body for the first time and felt very upset. Ran said he understood her, but added that it was impossible to become stronger without going through pain, and everyone survives as best they can. Ran confidently added that what doesn't kill him makes him stronger. During the day, in another place, Yu Tingxiong complained that it would be too late by the time the high awakened ones arrived while they were giving him an IV. Yu Tingxiong was worried that he would not be able to avenge his sons when he died. The nurse sitting with him said that she could persuade several awakened guilds in J City to join them. Liu Yu reminded that no one here knows her, since she came from City B, which means they don't know her ability. Yu Tingxiong started to talk about her words, but Liu Yao stopped him, saying that he could take some strong medicine if he hurried. Liu Yao said that due to the high risk, she asked Yu Tianxiong to fulfill a small condition when she completed the mission. Liu Yao asked to be included in the will for all the years she spent with the old man, since his sons were dead. At night, the Justice Guild, a guard post on the outskirts of the city. The security guards noticed movement and began to tell the unknown woman that no one had the right to leave the city without a pass. Liu Yao listened to their warnings about the danger of the new beast. Liu Yao's hair began to move, moving towards the guard post. Liu Yao's hair pierced all the people at the guard post. The life energy of the people slowly left their bodies through Liu Yao's hair. People were turned into withered bodies because of her skill. Liu Yao was bored with this, but she decided to endure it for the sake of the old man's inheritance, who only had a few days left. Liu Yao had specially made a potion in advance, using the soul of the strange beast and the blood of the young master, so that no one would sense her presence. Liu Yao poured the potion onto the ground, causing yet another tragedy to happen with this strange beast. Liu Yao was determined to absorb Yu Tianxiong. Liu Yao attacked the guard posts in the same way, and this was her way of framing Ran and making everyone hate him. Liu Jieyi recognized the same aura as the killers of Yu Wen and Yu Wu. Liu Jieyi saw this as an open challenge to his Justice Guild, and he decided that he would never forgive it. Luo Xuan from the top-level heavy metal band was delighted that the group was assembled and would destroy her beloved fans in one night. Luo Xuan decided that she wasn't going to let things slide without understanding the point of a one-man team. Bai Lilian read the incident report. Bai Lilian felt that the evidence was simply astonishing and wondered about the actions of this strange beast. Later in the evening, in Zhu's apartment, Xue was practicing yoga, trying to do a perfect one-legged handstand. Xue was sure that Ran would not attack the city guards without reason. Someone entered Zhu's apartment. Li Hongping asked Xue how long she had been practicing yoga and whether she found it tiring. Xue was surprised to see her mother and asked why she had come, knowing that she would not have come without a good reason. Li Hongping apologized for hiding Xue's identity and said that she could not visit her because she was too busy with work. Hongping told about the crimes of the strange beast, and Xue confidently stated that Ran had no interest in such things. Hongping didn't understand why she was judging the beast from the point of view of human logic, and asked Xue what her connection with him was, since she was so sure. Xue began to say that she had nothing to do with the strange beast, assuring that she was lucky to escape from it. Hongping reminded her daughter that she had always been a bad liar and warned her about using force. Xue asked her mother the reason for her visit, saying that she was definitely not bored, but simply wanted to learn more about the beast. Xue continued, saying that she was just a child who didn't deserve to be an individual, and that she wouldn't attract her mother's attention. Hongping said that it was better for Xue to turn to her mother for protection than to others. and assured Xue that she should do so by using her strength. Hongping saw all of Xue's memories related to the beast. Hongping was shocked by what young people did while thinking about only one thing. Xu felt her memories being interfered with. Xue rose to her feet, yelling at her mother that she shouldn't have been digging around in her daughter's head without permission. Hongping apologized to her, but said that she already knew John's name, and he should be a corpse, not a strange beast. Hongping told of an incident during a hunting party where Ran was among the dead, and he was a porter at the time. Xu was shocked. She didn't know how this was possible. Hongping recalled Ran's request to Xue for information about the elite center and the specific evolved one. Hongping was confident that an ordinary person could not turn into a beast while maintaining his individuality as a human. Hongping called John a man endowed with a different power, saying that he was not a beast. Hongping put her hand on her daughter's shoulder, telling her that she did the right thing because he saved her from Yu Wu. Hongping assured her daughter that Hongcheng Company must take care of Zhang, or their fate would take an unknown path. At the same time, on the other hand, John decided to direct all his efforts to raising the level in order to avoid a crisis in the future. Nico asked if Jean liked the place she had found, adding that the magical energy here was overflowing. Jan appreciated her efforts, saying that this was exactly what he wanted. Jan and Nico entered the cave. The entrance was covered with cobwebs. Cobwebs were hung all over the walls of the dark cave. Nico complained that she couldn't see anything because of the darkness, and Ran realized that his closeness to the darkness was just his personal bonus. Jan thought that he was not only here for his own survival, his team was also important. Jan used the skill of the victor's will and summoned Tur. Her affection was 50%. Bid also responded to the call. The level of affection is 69%. She complained about the long regeneration of tentacles. Balo showed up with them. Her affection level was only 10%. She immediately asked where Xue was. Ran told her that he had called her to light the way in the cave. Balo was annoyed by his idea of using demonic fire as a torch, and said that it would not happen since he was not the one who defeated her in the arena. Ran became irritated, noting that her rebelliousness was due to low affection. Jan rushed at Balo, saying that since he had not defeated her in the arena, he would personally take care of her upbringing. Balo dodged and Jan did not manage to touch her chest. Balo did a backflip to put some distance between them and asked where Ran was putting her hands. Balo used the fireball technique. Ran watched as the huge fireball flew towards him, listening to Balo mock him for not being able to dodge it in the cave. Jan appeared behind Balo, asking what nonsense she was talking about when she said she would be the winner this time, and surprised her by being able to dodge. Ran released the tentacles he had acquired after the last battle to catch Balo. Balo found herself bound by tentacles that wrapped around her entire body. Jan noticed that Balo had been caught once again. While she was trembling in the tentacles in the air, he asked if Balo had cooled down. Balo admitted her mistake, saying that she was ready to serve him, and her affection level increased to 50%. They then moved on through the cave illuminated by the lights of Balo. Jan was not very pleased and remained silent. Jen reminded that they came here for training and asked Nico and Bid if they had to hug him, but they said it was safer that way. When they came to the place where the cave split into 2 tunnels, everyone stopped. There was a lot of space here, and bones were lying around them. Tur asked where they should go if there was a fork in the road and whether they should split up, but John said that these forks were not for them. It's a pity he barely had time to say that the forks lead to them themselves, when a multitude of red eyes appeared in one of the tunnels. Jan pointed to the bones that were scattered around them. Jan assumed that they were catching prey and eating in this place, and for now they were simply waiting for the right moment. Ran told Tur to use the barber to destroy everyone and leave no one alive. Tur stood at the fork and began to provoke the beast to attack, using her skill. The spiders crawled along the entire tunnel towards Tur, who disappeared behind the barrier. There were countless spiders in each of the tunnels. Spiders were crawling from all over, quickly moving their legs due to provocations from Tur. Spiders began to jump out of the tunnel, rushing at Tur. Tur continued to provoke them as the spiders swarmed the barrier from all sides, trying to get to her. From the outside, neither the Tur nor its barrier were visible. There was only a huge pile of spiders swarming around in that place. Jan gave a sign, telling him to kill all the spiders with one blow. Nico took out her whip to attack. Bid prepared her tentacles to attack. Balo began to attack with lava breath. They simultaneously struck a cluster of spiders in one place. Ran looked at the spider corpses on the floor, receiving level-up notifications. Ran looked at the new skill, the Devil's Hand, thinking that the spiders allowed him to level up because of their numbers. John thought that somewhere there must be a spider nest queen whose presence he could not sense. Ran raised his head, assuming that she might be hiding upstairs since she hadn't come out to them through the numerous passages. As soon as Ran looked up, he saw the queen releasing poison. John shouted out the danger, warning his girls to be careful. The poison gushed out at them as everyone barely managed to jump aside to save themselves. Where the poison landed, the earth was scorched by the power of the queen's poison. Bid warned them that it was a strong poison, and one drop could kill. Nico listened to Bid's words, considering the situation dangerous, and immediately recognized the owner of the cave. The Spider Queen's name was Red, hinting that she was dangerous. Jan saw that she was level 6 and realized that he couldn't handle her alone, and was glad that he had a team. Ran activated the Devil's Hand, which allowed Ran to move objects using mana. Ran directed mana at the Spider Queen to capture the target. Ran pulled his hand down to lower it to the cave floor. The Spider Queen began to fall. The girls started moving towards her to grab the queen as soon as she fell. They wanted to reduce her strength to a minimum so that they could deal with her. The girls began to attack the Spider Queen all together to inflict heavy damage on her. Tur said that her spear had been ready for a long time, and she was just waiting for the order. Tur swung her spear and sent it flying towards the Spider Queen. The Spider Queen caught Tur's moon spear with her teeth. Tur was shocked to see her spear, full of energy, stopped by the Spider Queen's mouth. The Spider Queen screamed as she rose to her feet, and Tur raised her shield to protect herself. The Spider Queen spat out webs at the girls to prevent them from moving. The Tur became immobile after becoming stuck in a sticky web. Nico also found herself in the web, and she was worried that she would have to pay for her carelessness with her life. The Spider Queen opened her mouth, choosing her victim. Nico noticed that she was chosen and thought that she would be eaten first due to her lowest rank. The Spider Queen swung her pointed paw at Nico. Nico closed her eyes, worried that she didn't want to be a burden to the team. Nico heard a thud right in front of her. Nico opened one eye, not understanding why she was still alive. Nico's eyes widened when she saw the reason. Ran stood right in front of her. He cut off the Spider Queen's paw with one blow. Jan noticed that the queen's blood also contained poison that paralyzed the body, and he realized that he would have to deal with the 6th-level beasts. Ran assured the Spider Queen that he would continue to use the sword despite the poison in her blood. Jan assured that he had another subordinate, and a summoning circle appeared above the queen's head. Bansheed appeared and decided to help Tura with her howl, which could only help a little in this fight. The Bansheed used her howl to make the queen stop thinking rationally, and her resistance weakened. The queen released poison in all directions. Ran noticed the poison rain and gave orders to Balo to help Nico free himself, and said that they should know the capabilities along with Tura's shield. Balo said that she would fulfill Jean's order with interest. Ran called Bid, saying that they had resistance to poison, and said that they needed to attack together with all their might. Bid said that fighting with Zhang was a real pleasure, and he valued her the most since he chose her for this task. Jan pushed off from the cave floor. Jan cut the queen with his blade, giving her a bleeding effect. Jan managed to break through the queen's shell and leave 3 bleeding effects, but the poison still haunted him. Ran remembered the battle with Bid, glad that he now had resistance to poison, and decided that he was capable of winning. The queen curled up, adding poison to her opponents from her open wounds. Ran was shocked by this decision, not believing that the queen would use the wound as a weapon. The queen hit the cave wall, increasing her wounds. Poison gushed out from the Spider Queen's wounds in all directions. The cave wall has become thinner due to the influence of the Spider Queen's venom. Ran turned invisible, deciding that he needed to kill the queen in one blow because he was becoming more and more dangerous. The queen turned around, feeling movement behind her. Jen realized that he had been noticed, and invisibility was useless against a spider that lived in a dark cave. The Spider Queen rushed to attack the place where Ran stood. John was surprised to see that the Spider Queen was confused. Banshida screamed that her screams had worked and urged everyone to quickly kill her while she was disoriented. Bid threw her tentacles forward. Bid wrapped around all of the Spider Queen's legs and torso, immobilizing her. Bid asked John not to worry about her, because she has the ability to regenerate, and she is obliged to make the queen experience suffering. Bid said she wasn't sure if she could hold it for long, and asked John to attack with his strongest moves. Ran said that it was unfair to Bid, and after the victory he would reward her generously. Bid replied excitedly that she would do anything for a reward from John. Ran activated the Blood Prison Shackle skill, and spikes emerged from the cave floor. The bloody spikes pierced the Spider Queen along with Bid's tentacles. Bid's body was found to be covered in the Spider Queen's venom. The Spider Queen's venom was on both her skin and her clothes. Bid felt a burning sensation on her skin and screamed. Bid felt every drop of poison on her skin burn through her flesh and clothes. The Spider Queen still resisted, although she was wounded by a pile of Jean's thorns. Jan noticed that she was a strong creature since she continued to resist, but he considered her attempts futile. John increased the number of thorns that pierced the Spider Queen in different places. Jan shouted that he would tear her into small pieces. Ran used the Devil's Hand to pull the Spider Queen and force her to impale herself more firmly on the spikes. The Puck Queen let out a dying scream as she slumped limply against the spikes. Ran received a notification that he had reached level 42, and received the skill Kane's Wrath, which would allow him to enter the state of slaughter in extreme cases. Ran noticed that Bid's affection had become almost complete thanks to his excellent skills. Bid screamed at Jana that she could no longer hold back as she fell from a height. Bid fell right on top of John. Cave dust swirled around them. Bid found herself right on top of Jean and reminded him of his promise to reward her after defeating the spider. She said that now was the best moment. Bid asked John to take her right here. Ran looked at her in shock, thinking that Bid was a horny squid who couldn't hide his desires. Nico interrupted them, saying that now was not the time and that John needed to detox first. Bid said, offended, that she could not restrain herself in the face of such rewards, that she was too hungry. Bid took out her tentacles and offered to eat them for restoration. Such restoration does not last long, but will heal the wounds from the poison. Ran asked about Bid's poison, remembering that it was stored in the papillae. and Bid assured him that she had control over it, inviting Ran to enjoy her body. Jan pressed his mouth to Bid's tentacle, thanking her. Bid moaned as she felt Jan bite her tentacles. Tur and Balo watched the unfolding scene with confusion. Nico and Banshita discussed that they also needed emergency treatment for Bid. Bid said the girls were a lot of trouble, but for the sake of their wounds, she suggested they enjoy a meal together. After eating the tentacles, all the wounds healed well, but everyone was in a slightly strange condition. Ran noticed that the tentacles were amazing, but wondered why he had a rush of blood and an increased heart rate. Bid was shaking with excitement, saying that she forgot to mention that her tentacles were capable of touching everyone around her.